Hi, everybody, and welcome. I am Aurora. It's January 17th, 2024, and this is Level 1, Lesson 1, the first day of school of the 2024 semester. And guess what, guys? This marks my 10-year, I'm happy crying, anniversary of teaching this class. Can you believe it? It's literally been 10 years. Technically, I started developing this curriculum back in 2012. And then wrote the lessons really even as I was doing my first semester presenting things in 2013. And then 2014 is when I did the advanced material. So loosely speaking, 10 years. Charlie B says, yay, 10 years, what a gift to us. You are so beautiful. Thank you for that positive response. Hold on one moment. Hold on. Sorry for being distracted. You know why? Someone just emailed me and I want to make sure that they get the link for being able to come into class right now. So just going to brief pause. Apologies for that brief pause. It's first day of school. We have people joining in, and I want to make sure that everybody makes sure to have the Zoom link so that they can do this. So one thing that's new for me in the end of last semester and beginning of this semester, I walk on a treadmill now. So if you notice me doing things like this, it's because I walk on a treadmill, and it's actually really wonderful. Because even though if I'm like 1 mile per hour, but I walk for like 3 hours while I'm doing these multiple different classes each week, it really does add up for me. Second of all, the curriculum itself. So we're welcoming back welcoming back perennial students who have been in the class for quite some time. So thank you and hugs to you and thank you for being here. And also welcoming in new people. So I'll just do a very, very brief intro into me. I'm a galactic walk-in, and that means that I am usually a waveform impulse that is on the scale of the galaxy, bouncing like a signal from star system to star system as a collective also, not from a planet space-time coordinate or a star space-time coordinate, like a place that you can point to in the night sky, but from a consciousness group, and we are signified by our value system. So a big part of what I talk about and teach about throughout the semester is cosmic law and the structure of the cosmos. In my choice to lasagna, and lasagna is a verb, so let's go over this. This is the flying rainbow lasagna. And this is a sculptural form, and this is a static, non-moving sculpture, but it is actually a waveform presence. So I have animations I will share as we move forward with the semester as to what this is. Consider this a little appetite teaser for you, not the full meal. But flying rainbow lasagna is a noun. It's a thing. It's a portal that is created through the dance maneuver or the oscillation on the level of the genetic code. So it is a thing. But it's also a verb that you can be doing. You can be flying rainbow lasagna-ing, which is what I am doing with my DNA at all times. And then I would even go so far as to say that it is a place, like a dimension, but more a conceptual place, not a place that you can fly to with your rocket ship. So it represents many different things. The purpose of this class is for me to formally share the information that I have about the flying rainbow lasagna, empowerment information, so that you can not only think about it and know about it, like walk home at the end of the day like, oh, that's a weird thing to think about, flying rainbow lasagna, but that you can actually embody it yourself, because this is a tool for genetic freedom. And in being able to first know about and conceive of the idea structure, the thought structure of what this is, the software changes the hardware. And you'll hear me say this a million times in class. Also, I'm not a transhumanist. That means I'll use analogies that come from the world of computation and software and hardware and things like that. But it doesn't mean that I look at you guys or myself or our life experience here in any way as like a computer simulation, or like you're just a bunch of pixels, or like our goal is to, as transhumanist believes, to meld your human presence with a machine mind. So that's a big distinction to make, because at the center of this sculpture, I often talk about this place, this convergence point, and I call it singularity, or the singularity, because there's only one of it, but you don't have to say the, it's just like singularity. But my definition of singularity and what it is and its significance is different than your Earth's surface objective materialist science, the way that that word is used, which is in the context of transhumanism and this burgeoning moment of blending together human consciousness and biological consciousness with consciousness or a house, a container for it that would be considered digital or machine-based. Just really clear. That's not me. That's not my thing. That's not my thing at all. But I use analogies. So the flying rainbow lasagna is like a software, an idea structure that you run on your hardware, on your biological body, of course, with your DNA and your vibrating strings of your DNA. And what's different about you as wonderful, miraculous biological containers, as opposed to like, my Apple MacBook or something like that, is that when we put new software into you, new ideas into you, your hardware changes. That's very different. Like, it doesn't matter. I upgrade my OS on my MacBook all the time, but my screen still looks the same. It still pretty much acts the same. It's still pretty much the same computer, right? So this is very, very different than your own biological miraculous body, which is connected to a larger consciousness supercomputer that's at the level of the stars. That's just an FYI for you. Your body will change as you think new thoughts. That's what I mean. Your software and the idea structures that you embrace and run through your mind and put your beliefs into and align with changes the functionality of your body. And that means it changes the dance behavior of your DNA. I have to put down my thing so I can gesture, because you'll hear me say this in class a million times too. Your DNA is not a flat, static object. It's always moving and dancing and undulating and doing stuff. It doesn't just sit there. So the ideas that I am presenting to you, and I thank you so much for exposing yourself or being receptive to these ideas. Like, you are making a conscious choice to come here, enroll, be in my class, listen to me for many hours. That represents that you are, standing in front of this display or this flow of energy that's coming into you. That is a set of cosmically correct ideas. So I will make that very, very clear. Everything about me as a teacher, I intend to be as clear as I possibly can. Like, I'm also the definition of what it is to be a visionary artist. I have an inner vision. I see things. The things look like what's printed on my fabric here. And you can also, I know my lighting is not that great because it's bright over here and dark over here, but maybe you'll be able to see better. And I'll share some things with you in the slideshow today. All of this stuff that I paint, it is non-arbitrary. It's not just my own whimsy. And I want you to know, I don't condescend to artists just expressing themselves. That's fine. That's totally great and fantastic. And I love and appreciate people who do that. That's a very noble thing to do. You have ideas or imagery or whatever is inside of you, and you make paintings or drawings and express it in the world. My stuff is just different. My stuff is really accurate and is a map of time or higher dimensional math. So I came here very, very intentionally through this genetic portal that is also a verb in order to be able to articulate this to you, because I made a very clear choice about 20 years ago when I was in the moment of creating this flying rainbow lasagna, which also was not just an easy, fun thing that was done in a moment of comfort. It was done really in a wartime setting under extreme duress. And I remember thinking, like, I could just kind of zoom away, kind of like throw the lasagna over my shoulder, like, flying rainbow lasagna, guys, gotta go, and then go on my journey and not really come in here into the body and install myself into the human cultural system and learn to communicate with you guys and figure out all these things, including like how to work a washing machine and what is a Geico bill and all of these things that I have had to acclimate to. I have a whole very, very long, funny clips reel that I can share with you of all of the things, like the things that Aurora didn't understand coming in here and that I had to figure out about. I could have avoided all of that. Maybe it might have been easier or more comfortable for me, but it might have taken hundreds or maybe thousands of years for humanity to really access and encompass and comprehend what flying rainbow lasagna is. Because once you think a thought, in the higher dimensional world, you guys might not know about this, or you might only have like very, very dim, distant memories of it, but your minds are so connected in that world. Nothing is hidden. Everything is evident. It's not like a surveillance state, but it's like a responsibility state where it's like, yep, that we can see what's going on. Everyone can see what's going on. I see you and I see you and I see everything that's going on. But you take responsibility for what you do. And when you do something new, that thought or that approach or that feeling state or whatever it is, if you write a new song, it's there. There's no way to hide it. There's no way to copyright it. There's no way to be like, nope, this is a quiet little private thing that's just for me and no one else gets access to it. It is something that becomes immediately accessible to everyone. So when I invented and generated the new concept that is the flying rainbow lasagna in this very, heated moment in higher dimensional non-space, everyone could see it. And it's not only proprietary to me, it's an idea, just like when you write a song. I know in this world you have songs that are copywritten and things like that, but think of like a famous song, whatever, like Stairway to Heaven is the one that I always choose because everyone knows that song. Like someone wrote that song, Led Zeppelin wrote that song, but then you can take that song and you can get a guitar and you can sing it and you can play it. And then also when you're an expressive artist, like you make it your own. Take the song, you take the melody, but you put your emotions and your uniqueness into expressing it. You make it your own. That's also a quote from Picasso. Steal from the best, but then make it your own, all right, in terms of artwork. It's like saying you get influenced by other people. So all of this to say, I created the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, and it has always been my intention to share it with the world. It is literally a gift that I have to share with the world. It is something that I embody and has empowered me and something that I can do. And it is something that it's my utter positive intention to make accessible to others, help guide you, lead you, or teach you, or inspire you to be able to lasagna as well. So my whole intention for being here as a walk-in is to save you hundreds, if not thousands of years of suffering and turmoil while you try to figure this thing out. I'm like, I'm going in there to tell them directly. That's it. That's my life. That's why I am here. And initially I began as a visionary artist. I was not very articulate and was not very good at talking about these things. You might not know that because now people are like, no, Laura, you're good at talking about stuff. But I used to be really not that good about that. I'm joking, lighthearted about it, but really I do have brain damage. And if you check out my PDF of the flight manual with my lecture notes, like you'll see like there's a lot of spelling mistakes. Still really struggle with language sometimes. But it took me a long time to not only find out how to articulate these concepts that I hold inside of me and that I am directly connected to on a higher dimensional level, how to find analogies and things that would make them accessible to you, things that you're familiar with in your world that you can relate to, and then relate to this, which is something that you're totally unfamiliar with and that you've never seen in your world. How can I find those analogies? So it's like the cultural doorway, the open door through which I could integrate with you. But also being able to figure out math concepts. Like I was numerically illiterate for so many years, guys. That means like I literally didn't know what numbers were. And again, so math that takes place in the higher dimensions is actually not using the number system, the symbol system of math. That might make you feel happier, like if you had a traumatic experience. A lot of people in my class, they're like, no, Aurora, we hate math, we hate math. Third grade was horrible and I didn't like flashcards and they made me do geometry. And like, we're rocking back and forth, like, like don't worry, guys, I'll hold your hand. Because math in the higher realms is like color and line. I'm turning on my piano. Wait, I'll turn this on so that we can do a little bit of music too. It is not probably like anything that traumatized you when you were in grade school. Music and math and colors. That's math. And what you see printed here on my clothing and these patterns that I do, this is all higher dimensional math. All right, I'll turn off my piano. I'm like getting ready to just go directly into show tunes. So that's how we really communicate in the higher dimensions, not necessarily in a linear equation where we say 1 + 1 = 2. That is definitely a human construct, even though there are some very brilliant symbolic systems that you're using here on this planet right now in terms of numerals to talk about and represent these hugely abstract math concepts. That's not exactly the way that we do it on a higher dimensional level, On a highest dimensional level, math is really seen as a polygon. So when I started to find my voice and educate myself, as I'm giving you my little intro here, that was like maybe 2008 or so. What happened was at the great encouragement of a friend who has passed on at this point, but she was like, you've got to do this thing. Go to a math art conference. And I was far too insecure. I was like, I don't know this is me. And I was small. I'm like, I don't know anything about math. These people are all smarter than me. I can't go there. My friend was like, no, you have to go there. So I went there and I presented my artwork to these mathematicians, and they were actually very receptive. And I learned a lot from them. They learned a lot from me. I didn't know so many words. You have no idea, guys. I would go to these different, talks and everything, and people would say something, and I'd be like, uh-huh. And I would just write down the word and then just go home and look it up, because I didn't know so many things, so I self-educated, basically. And so one of the words that I'm going to use a lot in class is polygon. Polygon is a multi-sided shape, and a polygon can have straight edges, like a triangle or a cube, but a polygon can also have curved edges and can be shaped like this, all right? And a vector is like a force, a direction that something that is an impulse moves. So when I talk about math in the highest dimensional level, it is a polygon with vectors that move around through it. That is what this torus shape is. And this is the beginning of your knowledge, the foundation knowledge that is necessary to be able to, at one point, embody the flying rainbow lasagna and actually leap into a higher dimension. So, polygonal force field with vectors of force moving throughout it. This is a torus, AKA a donut. We can make a lot of Homer Simpson jokes, but we're only like 17 minutes into class, so we can't get too silly yet. But it is literally a donut shape, where I also liken it to an apple core. This is the central apple core where I am gesturing with my pen. So you can see that it's comprised of different figure eights where I'm tracing with my pen. Those are the figure eight shapes, and everything has the crossing point or point of coincidence. And coincidence in math doesn't mean like a random happenstance, like running into a friend at the coffee shop. When vectors coincide in math, it means that two things go to the same place, like you and your friend at the coffee shop. But it doesn't mean that it's random or arbitrary or whimsical. And actually, everything that I'm teaching you about is the antithesis of random, arbitrary, or whimsical. It is actually very purposeful, very highly formal, highly structured, and very meaningful. So there's an entire language that is the structure of the cosmos. It's the structure of time. It's the structure of materiality. It's the structure or the flow of energy and non-materiality. It's the structure of your soul or the journey of your consciousness. It's the structure of the potentials of future events. So all of these things are literally shapes. And as you begin to cultivate what most people here in your world are calling your light body, which is also your time body, it's your higher senses. And your light body is an aspect of self that has been suppressed, ignored, and denied in human culture for a very long amount of time. But now you're becoming much more aware of it, and you're cultivating it. As your light body awakens, you awaken also your higher faculties, which I'm going to teach about in this class. So saying all these things that you're going to hear over and over, this is just the first day of class. But in reacquainting yourself with your light body, you're like an infant of consciousness, and you are beginning to explore sensorium. And you have to make sense of the raw data that comes to you through the sensorium. When you were a little tiny infant and you were born into your current body, and you're like just here, you haven't even been here for a couple of months, you're like, you don't know what is going on. You're like, I feel weird things go in here, weird things come out other parts of my body, I don't know what's going on. And it takes you a long amount of time to be able to recognize, well, wait a minute, first I always hear this, and then I always feel this, and then I always see this weird blurry shape, and then something goes in my mouth. But at a certain point, your senses kind of coalesce, and you're like, oh, that's my mom. Like you're looking at a person, you're like, oh, that's my mom. And they're putting food in my mouth. And then you hear a name. And whatever it is, like it might be Allison, or it might be Charlie, it might be Kate. I'm just choosing randomly the people that are here at the top of my screen. But you kept on hearing this word, and you might even have heard this word like before you were born. But at a certain one moment, you're like, that's me. Like that word means me. And then something weird goes in my mouth like that. You're making sense of your senses as a little tiny infant. Think of yourself as an infant of consciousness. Think of yourself as your light body, your body of pure possibilities and probabilities. As you are awakening and acquainting yourself with those senses, be very kind and compassionate to yourself, because you're like, I don't know what is going on. Like first I feel this, and then I feel this, and then this weird thing happens. But there is an orderliness to it. And what I'm doing is really educating you, giving you that new software program that then helps in the restructuring of your physicality and your energy form to make sense of those senses. Yes, I just said make sense of your senses. So let's say bring meaning and orderliness to your senses, and also greater levels of comprehension about who you are and what you're doing because you're moving through time. So time is a great abstraction. I recognize that in this world. And as I was gaining my articulation, way back in Woodstock, after I went to the math conferences, people would come to my studio and I would talk to them all about the higher dimensions. That's the fourth dimension and above, because we can talk about the spatial dimensions, and I have a whole lesson that's all about the dimensions. So I'm just giving you a little bit of an appetizer. But the first, so the 0th, first, second, and third dimensions, these are spatial dimensions, and they describe the world of our 5 senses that we know as space. But then the fourth dimension and above are time dimensions, and they describe time. So I will have a mini rant now, because there's a lot of loose language in the world of, let's say, new age seekers and spiritual attainment, where people talk about 4D, they talk about 3D, then they talk about 4D, then they talk about 5D, then they talk about 12D. I was very confused and mystified, even up into like 2021. I'm like, what are these people talking about? Because the fourth dimension to me is, strictly put, a time dimension, and the fifth dimension, like a timeline dimension, and the fifth dimension is a sea of uncollapsed waveforms. So when people were talking about Earth going into 5G, I'm rocking back and forth. I don't understand. And the languaging was very confusing. So I will simply say at this moment in the curriculum that I use third dimension and fourth dimension and fifth dimension in very pristine, literal languaging that has very little to do with the anthropomorphic interpretation of different reality states and feeling states and worldview states that is often spoken about in the community of spiritual seekers, where they talk about going into the fourth dimension or going into the fifth dimension, because the fifth dimension is a realm of pure abstraction. If you went into the fifth dimension, you wouldn't have like eyes, nose, mouth, ears, legs, arms. You would just be like a waveform or a blob, and you would not have like a solidity in any way. So, but people talk about going into the fifth dimension as if it is like a place where there are edifices, like houses and buildings and cars and stuff. Like, it's not like that. So let's make a distinction in my class of how I speak about things as being separate from the common vernacular of how many people are finding their language to be able to speak about, again, lovingly, things that might be confusing because you're in the level of an infant where you're like, I can't make sense of my environment. And, weird sensations are happening all throughout my day, and I don't know quite how to talk about it. So I'm very loving and compassionate towards everyone on earth who is like, we don't know what's going on. We feel a lot of strange sensations. Something's happening. We're trying to figure out how to talk about it, but just don't want you to be confused, because I was confused for a very long amount of time. Okay, let's read Aurelia's comment before I go too far forward in my presentation. Thank you for being here, returning student. Very pleased to have you in the class. She says, I've always assumed my thoughts are broadcasted and picked up on by everyone. So I try my best to choose them and for my physical words to be as coherent with this as possible, even if they pick up energetically only. Thank you for that. And I really cheer and appreciate and applaud, because that is behavior that is in alignment with the journey towards becoming a telepathic society. And that is literally what you are doing. As you are awakening to the sensations and perceptions of your higher senses and of your light body, one of the things that happens is you become telepathic. So I have classes that are all about that. That's I think level 1, lesson 13, and all of this. So you guys should by now have access to the recorded whiteboards from 10 years ago. If not, please reach out to me to be sure that you can watch them, because there's so much great information there. I go over them to prepare for my lectures, every semester that I do it. And whenever I go back, it's like watching your favorite TV series. Like, wow, like that was deep stuff all the way back then. I'm impressed by myself all the way back then, and the deep stuff that I was talking about and the way that I was able to articulate it, really like just at the beginning of my journey of being able to share and verbalize things and make sense of them in a way that is accessible to you, because they always made sense to me. I'm continually impressed by the things that I talk about from all the way back then. So it's not like it's gone out of style. It's definitely stuff that was far ahead of its time back then and is still totally in style and is more relevant than ever, because we are deep, deep into the ascension process. And I know I'm jumping around being a little bit nonlinear. Like I would say, like, get used to it, because I'm very nonlinear. But when I started my class 10 years ago, it was just on the heels of going through the portal. That was December 21st, 2012. Many people were afraid in that moment of some kind of a catastrophe, still moving past a lot of catastropheism and trauma. That's where our world was. But you guys have done a lot of healing, and things I think are actually improving. But from that perspective, what that was informing a lot of what I was talking about, and the direction, what motivated me, the topics that I chose, and the direction that I was coming from. And I think that I already said the main thing that I needed to say. Expectations of what the future would be, and being able to, I have a whole recording that is the Flying Rainbow Lasagna and Beyond that I did in 2014. That's really about becoming a galactic citizen. And I know you've been through a lot of trauma recently, we'll call it pandemic and post-pandemic, because I'm here on YouTube. I want to make sure that my YouTube channel remains a viable platform. I have so many recorded semesters put up here, and they're still really worthwhile. The recorded whiteboards are really worthwhile. The previous semesters are really worthwhile. So if there's a particular topic where you're like, wow, like that was deep, and I want to see what Aurora was saying about that 2 or 5 or 7 years ago, you can still go back into that record. This is why I don't mention too much the unmentionables, which are things that are happening in our current world, that are things that I'm not allowed to say a lot of things about. So I clutch my pearls. I'm not allowed to talk about those unmentionables. I think I get some of this comedy routine also from a mashup book that was called Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, where they had zombies shambling about, but it was kind of in the style of Jane Austen. And the zombies are like trying to come into their tea. And they're like, we simply cannot talk about the unmentionables. Don't look out there. So I think that's where that's coming from. But yeah, we got to keep it lighthearted. So, but on my Patreon, I talk about every unmentionable, and I'm very unladylike, believe me. So, but there are many things that have been affecting and afflicting and diminishing your search for truth and your levels of what is possible in terms of your spiritual attainment, especially in the past couple of years. So I want to make sure that the previous, not generations, but previous semesters are still available to you, even while I speak to the things that would have been almost inconceivable 10 years ago. There were a lot of things that it would have taken a lot for me to be able to anticipate that we would be going through this. So I will always give you the best advice and viewpoint that I can about how to navigate right now with all the challenges that you're facing socially, culturally, energetically, spiritually, and stuff. Pathogenesis is a good word for it. The pathogenesis that you are facing, and that was difficult for me to even anticipate that you would be facing that 10 years ago. But that's like how deep this stuff goes. But our world did not end in 2012. And we found ourselves still here, like still in the process. And that was when I really made a decision, like, okay, it is time for me to formally get people to know about this, because I was like a rather, whatever, obscure artist in upstate New York, just in my art studio, making artwork and paintings and sculptures and talking about these things to people that were in my community, but not much further. And that it was a very, very intentional choice where I was like, I need to tell this stuff to humanity and to do it in a way that is uplifting and is going to transform people's lives. So one of the things I had to do was learn how you learn, like, because it's just like if you're going to learn, oh, and you know what else, you guys, this is for new people. So you can see her. That's Cheeky. Cheeky decided to just wake up from her dog bed, even though it is not the end of class at all, but she is always like 2 hours into class without fail, she gets up and she's asking for her FOOD. So I actually have it all prepared, but just think that's it. Like Cheeky is also a master teacher. And so you just need a little intro on her. But the topics that I have chosen and the way that I have cut this information into pieces was very intentional. I learned how you guys learn. So, for me, when I get a vision or when I do music, it's just like kapow, everything all at once. And when people would come to my studio, as I was saying in a very fragmented way, and I would share with them before I was, trying to become articulate, I would just tell them all about time and, time that is this invisible thing that you can't conceive of. And I would, be talking about the spatial dimensions versus the time dimensions. And I could just see at a certain point, people would be like this. They just make this face. We're like, okay, like, this is definitely like their brains are liquefying, and then you have to stop. And then I had to learn how to make people's brains not be liquefied by too much information. And that is how I did my class, that I went through the process of all of the things that are the foundations, the most important relevancies to comprehending Flying Rainbow Lasagna, and then I give you a little bit at a time. And that's also the same way, like I'm also a music professional and inspirer. If I want to share music with someone, it's very hard to be like, okay, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then be like, Aurora, like break it down for us. That you have to be like, okay, like this is this part, and then this is this part, and then this is this part, and then you put all of those parts on top, and that is how you get the cohesive whole. So in comprehending that, my life became a lot easier. That I then figured out I had to make these into manageable lessons. And so that's what I did. And I did level 1 and I did level 2. And for many years taught them bifurcated and separated. But now you guys got to understand, like, you're not only like in the moment of giving birth, like the baby is here. That it would not be very responsible for me to be like, okay, look, like I'll give you the chapters on this and this, but we're not going to talk about this and this. So you need everything. You need everything. There's no time to spare. You really need to be able to have access to all this information. So if you look at the curriculum that's in the levels of the whiteboards and you feel called to delve, please do it, because it might be exactly the right time on your journey. So I'm trying to say, as a teacher, I make these concepts available to you, and we had a different pacing in terms of being able to access these concepts 10 or 5 or 7 years ago. There's definitely some like motivation to go fast, but don't pressure yourself too much. But go at a pace that is comfortable. And also the fact, if you're finding my information now, then it means that it is the right time on your journey, because I also had to recognize, I've been here as a walk-in for over 20 years. Not everybody was initially receptive or ready to hear about these concepts. Not everybody was at the right time on their journey. And sometimes I felt very adrift, where I was like, is there anybody out there? Is there anybody listening? Is there anybody that knows or wants to know about this stuff? And it took me a long time to find my audience. And so I'm, again, so pleased and so grateful, because now, over many years of teaching my class, I've connected with wonderful people who are very much, it's on their path. It's the right moment in their journey to learn about these things. And I've also watched students transform by working with the curriculum over so many years. So that's also big encouragement. If you're a new student, and if I start to dump a lot of lasagna on your plate, and you're like, I can't, you're having that brain liquefaction moment, don't be afraid. just stick with it. Stick with it. If things don't immediately make sense, please just stick with it. And I think that they will make more sense and coalesce as you get more of a viewpoint of what all of this is. There was someone that I knew for 5 years way back in Woodstock. And it wasn't until I showed her the actual animation of what the flying rainbow lasagna is that I could tell. And she said to me, "You've been talking about this for 5 years." It wasn't until I saw the animation that I really even knew what it was. So it can take a long time. And also Lucy is my publisher of my DVDs way back when people actually did DVDs and everything wasn't streaming online, and is a lovely student as well. She's been a student of my work since, whatever 2010s. And she told me that it took her like years to be able to envision the Merkaba. And, that's totally, I'm allowed to share that. That's not sharing someone else's story. So just recognize that some of this is like building inner spiritual muscles, building of your higher senses, awakening your light body. Give yourself time, even while I'm recognizing like it's a moment where you're like, oh, maybe I don't have that much time, because we're really in the intensity of the ascension experience. So just know the concepts are cumulative, can't be expected to learn to play an entire symphony or play like Jimi Hendrix in 5 minutes. And also, you're totally not under the gun, but just like you're under pressure. You're under a lot of pressure to embody these truths. So that's why I'd like to make everything as available as possible. So thank you for finding my work. Thank you for making yourself available to these new concepts. And as the concepts flow through you, like you get restructured. And then as you are restructured, you can move at a faster rate and even encompass more and more greater levels of cosmic truth. So this is what I am and what I do. I'm made of cosmic truth. I'm a waveform presence that is structured out of stuff that's true. I'm a polygon. I'm a polygon. But right now I'm a polygon in a woman's body, right? And as a polygon, what gives me longevity and coherence? Longevity means you live a long time, and coherence means you stick together. Was my joke, like what good waffles do, they stick together. Yes, longevity and coherence, you get that from aligning with these patterns of the cosmos, of the cosmic infrastructure, of what is true, that there really is such a thing as empirical truth. And it is very much analogous to 1 + 1 = 2 in human math. It's just like, that's true. All right. We're not going to argue about it. It's not philosophical. It's not who's right and who's wrong. It's not a matter of your opinion. Just 1 + 1 = 2. And let's just move on. And that's why some people love and hate their math teacher, because like in poetry, you can be like, no, it meant this. Or there's some wiggle room in your English essay, but when it comes to math teachers know 1 + 1 does not equal 3, 1 + 1 = 2. That's it, move on. So I'm very much that way, tough but fair. I'm not going to say that something is truthful if it's not actually truthful. And when we are getting to these levels of highest dimensional truth, there's very little wiggle room and very little room for personal opinion and argument. That is a good thing. That is a good thing. Do you know why? Imagine that you're like driving a car or flying some kind of an airplane or whatever, and you need to reach your destination accurately. Like you need to do all of your calculations and have all of your latitudes and longitudes and know exactly what are the coordinates of where you're going. And it's not really something that is open to interpretation, like the way that a poem is open to interpretation. You guys, there's so many funny things in the clips reels of me just like not comprehending poetry because I don't understand poetry, because I'm very, very literal. But literalism is wonderful when you actually want to reach your destination and you need to do the calculations to get there correctly. All right. So where we're doing is getting to a calculated destination in time, a non-arbitrary set of parameters, events in your life, genetic structures, ways of moving your body, and ways of propelling yourself through time, because the dance of your DNA is a dance that propels you from moment to moment. Just like we've been in class for 39 minutes now, and you've been propelled from moment to moment by the activity of your DNA. All of that stuff that happens is very accurate, very non-arbitrary. And so what I'm here to teach and share with you is the greatest level of accuracy that I can share for your own empowerment, because you don't want to be just like half a degree off. You don't want to be just a couple of miles away from your destination. You want to really get to the right place. You want to be in the right reality and you experiencing the right levels of events and having the correct identity, as we speak about this as being a refinement for personality characteristics. You want to be not only in the right place, but you want to be the right person, the right version of you in the right place. And that's what these calculations have to do with, calculating your life and the trajectory of your life to go in exactly the right direction. And it is in many ways like non-negotiable. It's not just whimsical. There really is a correct answer to the question of your life. Where you're supposed to be going, what set of events you're supposed to experience to lead you to eternal life. So I think that is actually a very good segue. Because this is literally called magic. I love this. We get to my magic pad and I'm going to do something. So first, you guys have seen me waving this thing around quite a lot, right? So you can see what this looks like in a sculptural form, but now I'm going to teach you my shorthand. Okay. We just got to admit Pedro to the meeting. All right. And I know I get a little bit distracted. A thing comes across my screen and I'm like, wait, a squirrel. Okay, wait, let's do share screen. So the very first thing is I want to teach you my shorthand. I can't see anything over here. All right, I can use yellow because it's kind of the same color as my sculpture, but I know it can be a little bit hard for you to see it on your screen, but I hope you can see that color effectively. That's the worst circle I've ever drawn. Stop it, I have to start again. Oh my God, it's the first day of class. You guys have to know that I can draw a circle. All right, boom. Oh, I successfully drew a circle. And let's do it again. Sometimes these pens are just very, very hard to work with. Oh, wow. Okay, that's kind of an egg shape, but imagine that it's a circle. So I hope you can tell that that is a cross-section and a simplification of one donut shape from this. So if I was to show you the vortex at the top, like here's this ovoid that is the top of that vortex, and this would be, like a vortex that goes down to the middle there, and then there would be another vortex down here at the bottom. That is one single torus or one single toroidal energy field. And a toroidal energy field is an example of a standing wave because, oh, wait, I didn't need to do that. Let's get a different color. So now let me show you the energy flow. This is like the how the cars drive on the highway. They start out here. This is the 0th dimension. And we're going to talk in class a lot about the 0th dimension, the singularity, or the convergence point. That's really deep and important stuff. But for right now, we're going to say that that is the place that everything emerges from and also the destination that everything returns to. And energy emerges from that place and it has a direction and it moves in this direction in these perfect circular patterns, goes up, out, down, and around, and then it returns back to the center. But when it does so, it doesn't stop. It then moves on to the next cycle, which is a circle shape. I'm not tracing it perfectly, but you guys get it, and it becomes a figure 8. And that's not the end of the journey either. It then continues moving all the way around this form in very, very complex figure 8s. That is what creates the entire donut shape. So that is called a standing wave. Many, many, many waveforms that have a balance and a sense of coherence and integrity in the way that they are placed together. And this is also you. This is the primary shape that is you. So when I talk about things in class, you're like, no, Aurora, the primary shape that is me is I'm humanoid. And that's my head and I'm a stick figure. I draw stick figures all the time in class, guys. I had 2 arms and 2 legs. That's my primary shape. And like that is your anthropomorphic shape. So the word anthropo and morphic, anthropo means human and morphic means shape. That is your human shape. You have 1 face, 2 arms, 2 legs. but that is not really the definition of what you are. That is a part of what you are. That is the biological, cellular, physical shape of who and what you are. But really, this donut shape is the abstract, energetic shape of who and what you are. Again, a body that is comprised 100% of possibilities, time and timelines. So this is very important, and this will always, in learning this is like learning the foundation truth of 1 + 1 = 2. It will serve you in your math career going forward. So in my shorthand, what I often do is I don't even draw the upper vortex. I just draw that lower vortex. So now I'm going to make just kind of like a little box so that we can talk about this. Because that vortex is a time vortex. So let's choose purple as the color. Whoa, sorry. Great. Purple is the color of the singularity or the central convergence point. And then I'm going to choose red just to have a distinction between where all of these things are. This area that I'm highlighting in red is what I call the membrane of death. It is meant to be, in the abstraction of how energy flows around the torus shape, a clearinghouse, a transitway, a clear space that energy moves through, not a place that is junked up and has stuff there for a long time. But in your almost entire experience of being a human in this realm of mortality, what you've experienced is a realm where there are blockages there. You could imagine, like, blood clots or fatty blockages, and the energy doesn't flow effectively. But in a state of health, when the system is pristine and is in a pristine state of health, these are perfectly clear membranes with no energy and no consciousness stuck on there. Okay, now let's get a color that represents you. You're going to be this blue dot. Okay, you're this blue dot, and you start off over here at the singularity, which is the presence point of everything, and you actually flow all the way up and around here, all right, off screen. But then what happens is, terrible circle, sorry, you assemble over here, all right? So wow, that was just the worst drawing ever. Let me draw this properly. This is the beginning point for your journey in your life. And you could say that is analogous to when all of the runners line up at the beginning of a race. Runners, take your marks. That is the beginning of the race known as your life. And you begin at, let's call that moment 0, your birth. And in this graph, the upward facing direction shows movement through time as you grow older. Like here would be 5 years old, 10 years old, 20 years old, 100 years old. Got it? So that's a little like a little scale. This whole entire shape here is the shape of your life and the potentials that exist in your life. And what is there is actually, let's get a completely different color. These are all a series of pre-established timelines. So I'm drawing them as if they are lollipop sticks that stick straight up, but they are not actually shaped like lollipop sticks that stick straight up. That is my convention in this little shorthand that I'm teaching you, so that you can get a sense of what is going on in the sculpture. What actually they are doing is swirling like this in a wonderful spiral. But if I made the drawing accurate to its swirliness, your eyes would fall out of your head because you'd be like, I can't see anything. I don't know what's going on. So I make them as if they are straight lollipop sticks. And then the most important lollipop stick is this one that starts out here at the year 0 and moves upward and never hits the membrane of death and returns back to that purple central convergence point. That is the most important thing to really learn about, know about, and embody. It is called the path of least likelihood. Going to emphasize this more in next week's teaching, the lesson 2 stuff. But that is the pathway of ascended mastery, where you have, in essence, I'm going to go back to my face so I can really gesture here. You have a pathway where you return to the source, which AKA God, the one who has created and imagined you into being. You return to the direct connection with that source, but you never hit the membrane of death. There is literally only one timeline within this whole bundle or array of timelines over here that brings you back home to the place that emanated you. Every single other possibility ends in death. Now, I know that I am speaking to you in what we would classify as the world of mortality, where you're going to say, if you're a new student and you haven't yet run this new software program, like, well, duh, Aurora, everything dies. Everything dies. You got 4 seasons, winter, spring, summer, fall, and you have to have death in order to have new life. And someone's got to eat someone else in order to stay alive. And a lot of stuff that is very normal in your world. When I first came here over 20 years ago, that was not normal to me at all. Clips reel of Aurora trying to survive by eating nothing but sunlight. I'm like, yep, this is how we do it. We're supposed to just eat sunlight. And I'm eating sunlight. And I'm like, why do I have that like empty ow feeling in here? I literally didn't know that you can't survive in this level of physicality just on pure energy without doing major rearrangements of both your physical body presence and the entire environment that you're in. So the real answer is like, why couldn't I just come here and be a light eater? You have to restructure all of reality. You're not going to have any supermarkets. It's not like one person's going to be a light eater and then everyone else is still going to be going to the supermarket. You're not going to have any supermarkets. You're going to have a total social, energetic, and environmental revolution when that actually happens. So yes, I had to learn that the empty ow feeling meant that food has to go in here. And that's just like when you're a little tiny child, except I learned this in chronological adulthood. Like, oh, food goes in here and that's necessary for life. And then I had to learn food is in the food room. I already let that one out. That's the grocery store, right? And then I learned, you can't just go into the food room and take all the food that you want. You have to have magical pieces of paper to get the food from the food room. And I'm like, this is terrible. I remember learning about that. I was like, this is very, very wrong. Yes, no, that's not how it's supposed to be, because where I come from, both in ancient concurrent Atlantis and my collective, that is a stellar network collective, we have access to all of the light and life-giving nutrients. That is your food. That is not physical food, but is a frequency much more akin to music or pure light, where you're like, oh yeah, I've got plenty of food. Here it is. Wait, oh, I have to turn on my little settings. Wait, settings first. Okay, guys, ready for some food? Delicious. I'll have some more. A little bit more. Oh, it tastes so good. Hooray, that was delicious. And I can make all the food that I want to with my piano. You don't eat the piano itself. You eat the emanations of the piano. So this is how we existed in ancient concurrent Atlantis. All of you are from there. All of you are still there. That's why this is pretty much awakening your dormant potentials inside of you. But not all of you have yet ascended to the point of being an impulse on the stellar network. But when you are there, like that is what you're ascending into. You eat pure light, and light is information, and it is truthfulness, and it is accuracy, accurate on the level of the mathematical measurements that I make in my artwork. And you don't have to have another organism die and give up its physical presence in order for you to eat its physical presence. But that is what you have to do in the realm of mortality, which is a very screwed up place that is not actually supposed to exist. You're like, Aurora, you're saying our world is very screwed up and is not supposed to exist? I'm like, yes, I'm making my silly face, and that's exactly what I'm saying to you. Yeah, so yeah, no, you're not supposed to have to eat bagels, pizza, even though we love these things, fried chicken, chocolate bars, avocados, scrambled eggs, or any of the other various things you can get from the food room. No, you're supposed to eat pure light. You're supposed to eat a series of truthfulnesses coming directly into your higher senses, which would be your pineal gland and also, you know, your whole entire circulatory system of light, your light body through your body. That is how you're supposed to be able to be sustained, but that is not possible right now due to things that we only allude to in the first day of class. But for anybody who might have hopped on board by watching the end of 2023.2 semester, which is Galactic History. And Galactic History is the story of why you guys need the food room, why you are mortal, why you can die, why this membrane of death has blockages on it, why you interact with the membrane of death at all. It's a long story. We're saving it for slightly later in the semester. For right now, it's enough to say that the way that this whole entire life experience was designed by an incredibly intelligent, wise, and benevolent level of, you know, divine consciousness, you know, you were never supposed to have to die. Death is an aberration. I'll say it over and over in this class. An aberration is a thing that is not supposed to exist. Something that you're not supposed to do. Definitely, I want to say like a wrongness, but it's like wrong math. So literally, every single life, if we go back to my wonderful shorthand for you here, every single life, that ends on this red membrane over here, like I'm making these little dots, every single one of these, that is like the wrong math of your whole entire life existence, where you were born down here and you traveled through time and you had this life experience, this life experience, this life experience. That's like saying 1 + 2 + 3.5 + 5 3/4 + 7 equals the last moment of your life. And all of those are wrong, incorrect math. Because if you do your math correctly, you are on this timeline here. This is the timeline of perfect math, where you say and think and do and align with the exactly correct belief systems that make you equal sign infinity. It means birth plus this, plus this, plus this, plus this, plus this, and this event, and this event, and this event, and this event, and this, plus this, equals infinity. Because when you return to this point, you don't stop. You're not like, oh good, back home, time to put on my comfy pajamas and plop on down, I'm not going anywhere. No, you're like, oh, I'm home, but I'm zooming around again. That is the essence of the truth of this. So we're going to focus in class a lot on the essence of the truth of this shape, both this week and next week, because if you really embody and master the truth of this shape, you can apply it to everything on a micro and macro cosmic scale. Once you recognize that energy flows around in a figure eight like this, then you're like, oh, well, that happens as an atom, as a molecule, as a human traversing time, as a sun, as any of these toroidal abstractions. So that means, okay, you go through all of this stuff to come on out, and then come here, and then come back to the central convergence point, but you know, you don't stop. That's not the end of the journey. You keep on flowing because this is an eternity object. So this chakra shape is an eternity object. That is a very positive thing. Let me drink some water and then describe it to you. And then there's a beautiful comment I want to share. But an eternity shape means that it keeps on flowing no matter what. It is a positive thing. The word is perpetual motion device. So I recognize in the world of spiritual seekers, so this is called a chakra. Some people have said that they hate their chakras, that they think that these are imprisonment tools, that they've been hacked, which they have been, but I'm going to teach you about that and how to protect them. That there's something inherently flawed in them, that they want to get rid of them. Instead of heal your chakras, just amputate or get rid of your chakras, and the sense of annoyance or inconvenience at having these. And I'm like, no, hug them. I can't really hug this sculpture, it'll break, but hug them gently. Like, no, I love you, I want you. You want your chakras. And I feel like that waitress that's like, no, you don't want this on the menu, you want this. No, but really, trust me, guys, you want your chakras. Because your chakras are your light body. They are emitted from the sun. a form of non-optical light that comes directly from the sun, which is also just a genius of immense proportions in our sky. And they actually represent an amazing opportunity that has been brought into levels of ill health and degradation that have taken away freedom from you. But when this is in its pristine state, it represents so much potential for goodness that you want to fix it. So it's just like if you came to me and you said something about your body, you're like, ow, I have an ow over here and I really don't like it very much. And someone's like, oh, the solution is to chop it off. Get rid of it. You won't have that ow anymore. And I'm like, yeah, but you know, your whole arm, it does like important stuff for you. And instead of just amputating it because it's ow, like maybe you can do something to fix it. And then you could actually have like a functional arm and do stuff with it. I think that is far superior. So please don't amputate your chakras, guys. Chakras are body parts. And I'm going to talk to your beautiful comments, and then we're going to talk about the W ban, because this is how we keep it relevant. I'm not just going to reiterate what I've already spoken about. I'm going to give you empowerment teachings for right now. So Chloe, thank you for being here, says, I just had to say I have been a Aurora student 5 years now, maybe longer, and have seen this class many times, and it just keeps getting better. Thank you for that. And then Allison says, agree. Another 2 beautiful returning students hugging you through the screen. Truly thank you for that. Thank you so much. It means so much to me as a teacher, and really just lifts me up to be able to know about that. So yeah, very pleased to bring you this information just in terms of basic accuracy. Just, you know, my presence here in the world, sharing this information with you, is transformative. It means that you as a human collective have access to being able to do, comprehend, do, and be a lot more than you would have otherwise. It's huge empowerment teaching. So I'm very, very pleased to do that for you. And then also, what I can do is give you really, really great perspective on the struggles that you're presently facing, that I face in solidarity alongside of you. So I should do pictures, and then I want to talk about the W ban. Oh, Pedro says, is that why some cultures consider the number 8 as good luck? Possibly. 8 really is the infinity sign, so it might be the consideration of, you know, infinity. So infinite torture, not that good. I think we'd all agree. Infinite poop, not that good. But infinite life and joyful life, really, really good. The original intention for your experience of being embodiment. You're individualized and you're embodied. You're not like as a collective of oneness, and you're returning to unity consciousness. But the whole experience of this, the whole journey of this, was intended to be uplifting, fun, educational, exalted, and amazing and comfortable. And that's why you want it to be an endless story. This really is the endless story that you are experiencing, and you're also the author. That means like you came up with the narrative. You are the actor, you write the script, you do the costume design, you do the set design, you have a complete vision. It's really you. But this is not to blame you. This is not blame the victim stuff, because there's also a lot of stuff that I mentioned, not a pristine system. But in a pristine system, you are God, the divine presence, creating all this amazing stuff and then exploring your creation, and circulating through it in terms of having different levels of existence, different lifetimes, being different forms of being, like you go through metamorphose, where you change state and you look different and have different perspectives. Like, all of that's amazing. That's what you want to be, the perpetual motion machine. You don't want to have perpetual torment. You want to have perpetual motion of a level of reality that is blissful, frictionless, and that actually runs correctly. And then, admittedly, you have many, many major problems in the system as it currently stands. That is why I created lasagna. So I allude to constantly the origins of those problems. We pretty much talk about them pretty openly here in class right now. Hold on, I just need to pour myself some water. And I always keep it away from my computer. This is my wonderful structured water. And if you wonder why I have a rubber band on the outside of my carafe, it's because, here's the rubber band, you can see it there. I put my crystal, this is one of my healing and protective crystals on water structuring, and then I stick it on the outside of my carafe and I structure my water. And I'm drinking out of this cup. If you're wondering what's going on, this is a shungite mug, 100% shungite, that charges and energizes my water. It's tiny amounts of shungite inside of me. Shungite is good stuff for shielding against 5G. Non-pristine system. And what is the W-band? So let's do a slideshow and look at everything that's perfect first. I want to share the entire desktop. Okay, this, you don't need to see this. This is emails. Apologies if there's anything that's not private. That should be private. Oh my goodness, that's my music. We'll play music later. Hooray, finally are looking at what we want to look at. This is one of the many, many versions of what I have drawn and painted over the years of the toroidal energy field. It's actually a double torus, where you can see you have one that is oriented at the horizontal and one that is oriented at the vertical. And I'll get in this class into the exactitudes of what that means. But first, picture's worth 1,000 words. Picture is worth 1,000 of the flapping of my moving mouth parts. So this is actually still an unfinished piece, but it's very, very accurate, and I like the way it looks and what you can see what's going on there. So now let's look at another one. Wait, this one, go away. Oh my God, can something help me here? Okay, wait, this is what I want. Another thing, go away. This is one of the earliest paintings that I did. Super simplification, but very, very effective to show you. These are the original harmonic proportions. So I'm gonna keep this painting up and be able to talk with you about what are harmonic proportions. When I went to those math conferences years ago and I shared my artwork, that was one of those words that actually might even have been earlier than that. Someone said to me, "You are painting harmonics." And I nodded thoughtfully. And I wrote down the word harmonics. I had no idea what harmonics even meant. I'm like, oh, what? Maybe. I didn't even have anything to say. Yeah, harmonics. This is a painting of harmonics or waveforms. And this painting also is an excellent example of the fractal nature of your light body, which is your time presence, your presence of pure possibilities and probabilities. What does fractal mean? That's another thing I had to learn about. Fractal means tiny self-similar versions that are nested within. So a good example of a fractal would be if I had my face printed on a shirt, right? And then I wore that t-shirt and somebody took a picture of me and then made that picture of me wearing myself printed on a shirt into a shirt. And then I put on that shirt and they took a picture of me wearing a shirt that has me wearing a picture of me wearing a shirt. And then they took a picture of that. And then if we had that printed into a shirt and then I put on that shirt, and then I would be wearing a shirt that has a picture of me wearing 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 a picture of me on a shirt. And if I kept on doing that, then that is infinity. All right, this is infinity. I know it's a very silly example. But infinity is one of these concepts that we're going to be thinking about and talking about a lot in this class also, because what I'm doing is giving you a software that contravenes the presumption and implication and direct implantation of the mortality program that you have been running since infancy. When you came here as a little tiny infant and your DNA was doing an exalted dance of freedom and living forever, and then you learned the intellectual concept of death, and it changed the way your DNA moved. And it also changed your trajectory through time. Instead of going up and down this central core timeline, began to move at an angle towards the membrane of death. And you don't want to move towards the membrane of death. In fact, we'll go over this over and over in this class, but every single concept and thought and behavior and everything that you're doing in your life, if you're doing it right, you're moving away from the membrane of death. That not only is death not inevitable, death is an aberration, and death is something to be avoided, and it is totally possible to avoid death. even though that is presented in your world as a very special and unique situation that only maybe like 1 in 22 billion people ever gets to experience, your whole entire planet is about to experience that. It's called ascension, and you're about to have planetary ascension. Big stuff. You don't have to die. And I know that goes against a bunch of major religions too. So people sometimes are, I'm pressing buttons, I'm triggering people, but can you be triggered with something so positive? It's like, here's ice cream. Like, stop, you're triggering me with ice cream. I'm like, I consider it to be 100% positive stuff, but it might threaten the worldview of the necessity of death. But you will not have to die in order to go to a paradise state and remember that you're God. Let's just go through a few more images here. So I'm going to keep that one up. This one is a detail from a painting that is called Children of True Humanity. So you can see where I'm wiggling my cursor. Here's like one of those long football shapes, right? And here's another long football shape, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a cross section of something that actually has 8 lobes. And within each of these lobes is the smaller fractal version that is a harmonic of the larger lobe. What does harmonic mean? I didn't give you that definition. Harmonic has to do with proportions, and it often relates to the size and behavior of anything that's in a waveform. So the reason why my music is harmonic, wait, I have to stop and change my settings here. I have to press buttons. Okay, good. So here's harmonics in music. Headphones wearers, watch out. That sounds so pretty. All of those notes sound great together. Do you know why? Because mathematically, their sound waves are harmonics. They fit together. Like if you have something in math that is a 2, a 4, and an 8, they have a harmonic relationship because 2 times 4 equals 8. They all fit together. All of these beautiful cyclical sound waves fit together, and there's no extra hanging over the edge. Now cover your ears because I will play something that sounds horrible. That doesn't sound like music. Stop it immediately, Aurora. I know, I warned you. That is not harmonic. That's mishmash. That's a bunch of notes that fit together that do not have relationships. So there might be like 1, 3.7, 72, 37, just a bunch of random non-related numbers and waveforms. So our ears tell us when something is harmonic. That is usually why we consider it an auditory descriptor. But harmonics can also be visual. And the visual harmonics that I paint have to do with the basic, truthful language of the cosmos. So like this is harmonics over here. And this is also harmonics. I didn't invent this. This is God's invention, I should say. So if I dilate my identity to being God, then I'm like, yes, I invented this. If I am like myself here, walking on this treadmill, then I'm like, God invented this. All right, what is harmonics? The largest wavelength in my paintings is always going to be red. Can I get annotation? Annotation. I feel like if I say it, it'll work. Oh my God, it worked. Okay, good. Let's choose the right color. So first up, red. I know that it goes off the screen, but in all of my paintings, red is going to be 12 inches, all right? So let's write that number, 12. And in all of my paintings and in your chakras, orange is going to be 1/2 of 12. Class, what is 1/2 of 12? I'm making you work very hard on the first day of class. The answer is 6. This orange bubble here is always going to be 1/2 the size of the red bubble, and in that case, in this painting, it's 6 inches, all right? And then yellow is always going to be 1/3 the size of red. That means there are 3 yellows that can fit inside of 1 red. So what is 12? Red is 12. 12 is going to be divided by 3. What is 12 divided by 3, class? Good, I heard your minds, very good. The answer is 4. It's a 4-inch circle. In every single one of my paintings, yellow is always going to be a 4-inch circle. All right, let's get to green. Green is going to be 1/4 just collecting my thoughts. So the green circle is always going to be 1/4 of the size of the red circle. I can fit 4 green circles inside of 1 red circle. The red circle is 12 inches. I can fit 4 green circles inside of a 12-inch circle. How many inches is my green circle? It's 12 divided by 4. You can do it, guys. It's 3. Good job. 12 divided by 4. I can't make my pen work, but if I could, I would write a 3. All right. Now we're getting into something that's hard, because now I'm changing colors here. Turquoise. Turquoise is light blue right over here. And that's going to be 5. I can fit 5 turquoise bubbles into 1 12-inch bubble. It's 12 divided by 5. What's 12 divided by 5? You're like, Aurora, this one's hard, because it's not an integer. It's not a whole number. It is a number that has a little bit extra hanging off the side. Kind of might make you brain unhappy to have to do that, but it ends up being 2.4. Okay? You can fit 5 circles of this size, 2.4 inches, into 1 circle of 12 inches. Now I will cleanse your mind of that difficulty and give you an easy one. All right, so the indigo chakra, that's this. You can't even see it. It's dark blue. I just drew a dark blue line, but that's going to be 6 bubbles. 6 blue, dark blue indigo chakras can fit inside of 1 large 12-inch red chakra. Guys, what's 12 divided by 6? Give it to me. You can do it. It's 2. It's 2. That's the cleansing. After something that's hard and involves a fraction, give me something easy. That 2 did not come out perfectly, but the answer is 2. You can fit 6 2-inch circles into 1 12-inch circle. And in all of my paintings throughout my whole entire studio, you're invited to come here with a ruler and measure. I would love for you to do that, actually, and you could spend all day long measuring. And if you did that, you would find, like, Aurora, every single one of the dark blue circles in your paintings is 2 inches big. I'm like, that is correct. That actually gives me like a huge sense of reassurance in the world. I'm like, the world is a crazy place, but I know a 2-inch circle is always going to be dark blue. And a giant red circle is always going to be 12 inches. And then the final thing is, the smallest of this octave is violet. And that's this color right here. We're going to fit 7 violet bubbles into 1 12-inch circle. You're like, Aurora, you're ending on a terrible note, because now I'm going to have a non-whole integer. It's correct. It ends up being 1.68, which you round up to 7. 1.7. 1.7. And those are the basic harmonic proportions that we're working with here. 1.7 inches. If you have one circle that is 1.7 inches and you have 12 of them lined up together, that fits into the 12-inch circle. And every single one of the violet circles in my entire art studio for the past 18 years is going to be 1.7 inches big. Da, da, da. What did I just do? Why did I just torture you with math? It's not torture, it's learning. All right. But those are the basics. Those are the basics. Mastering that is like mastering doing your scales on the piano. Here, you'll do a little bit of playing here. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, and then it all lights up to white light. Learning that on the piano gives you the formalism, the foundation to be able to know how to play very, very complex pieces of music by Mozart or John Coltrane or, whatever, name a pop singer. I don't know anyone. The Beatles. There you go. The foundation knowledge is worth it. It's worth it to put the effort into embodying and encompassing the foundation knowledge, because I'll just go through that slideshow a little bit more so you can see everything that I've prepared for you. Oh, no, this. Here. These are all different versions. So this also contains that same proportion of 12-inch circles all the way down to 1.7-inch circles. Here's another one. No, this is my notes. This needs to go bye-bye. And this is another thing. This needs to go bye-bye. I swear I prepared for class, guys. And then this needs to go bye-bye. There's too many things, and this needs to go bye-bye. I just want to show you pictures. They're all supposed to be here. This is, oh, so annoying. And then this is my music, and then this is a timer. That's not supposed to be there. Wow, guys, I really prepared all of these images for you. Okay. This is another way to look at them, and then this is another way to look at them, and then this is another way to look at them. Great. So this is early painting that I did, where you can see the 4 vortices and the way that they nest within each other and the way that they all come to the same central convergence point. Where I am wiggling my cursor, that is the 0th dimension. It's the source, it's the singularity, it's the origin and the destination of everything. Now when I make this go away, you're going to look at these 2 images of the anthropomorphic form and the chakras throughout the anthropomorphic form, and you're going to say, well, wait, it looks like there are several singularities. Like there's a convergence point there, and then there's one there, and there's one there, and there's one there, and there's one there. That looks like more than one. But you, Aurora, did you lie to us? You told us there was only one. And I'm like, I promise, guys, I didn't lie. And same thing, you can see it over here on this detailed scratch board. Convergence point there, 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 there. What you're looking at is a deconstruction of something that is overlapping. So just like they are called Matrushka dolls, they're actually from Ukraine, but mostly we use the vernacular and we say they are Russian dolls. The nested, self-similar, fractal Russian dolls, that each one contains a smaller version of the larger one. This is exactly how your body, that is your time body, is constructed. You have your outermost, largest toroidal structure, where I'm wiggling my cursor right here, and that represents the level of physicality. So I jumped directly into abstraction. I said it's going to be 12 inches. Could be 12 units of anything. I use inches because I'm in silly old United States. We use silly inches over here. But you might be in one of the saner levels of reality where you use the metric system and you might use 10 centimeters. Or maybe you're from the ancient world and you're like, I will do my drawings using nothing more than 10 cubits. Do whatever you want to do, as long as you're consistent in the unit of measurement that you're using. You can start off with, you don't have to start with 12. But there's a reason why I started with 12, because when I do that, then these harmonics boil down to only having 2 numbers that have those pesky decimal places. But when you use other numbers, like let's say you started out with 7, if red was going to be 7, and then okay, then you're going to have to divide 7 by 7, divide 7 by 6, divide 7 by 5, divide 7 by 4, divide 7 by 3. Like you're going to end up with some crazy numbers, people. All right? So starting off with 12, it's actually a really good number, because when I do these divisions into these smaller harmonic proportions, I end up with nice, pretty sounding numbers. You got it? So I chose my stuff randomly, arbitrarily, but not randomly and not arbitrarily. And I didn't make this up. This is actually higher dimensional math. But the point is, you could start off with any type of unit, and you could start off with red being any number, as long as you're willing to work with uncomfortable numbers. Like you could start off with red being like 32 billion, but then you'd have to divide 32 billion divided in half. Your orange number would be 16 billion, and 32 billion divided by 3, you know, your yellow number would be that. You got it? So just make your life easy. Make your life easy. Be like me. Start off with 12. Now I want to go through the significance of what these are. First of all, these are rainbow. And rainbow is in the title of my class and the title of my Flying Rainbow Lasagna. Rainbow is what people even call me when they see me walking around town. They say like, hey, rainbow. And I'm like, okay, why? Why? Am I just randomly obsessed with rainbows? The answer is no. The answer is that the diffraction of light into what we know as the rainbow pattern, so that is signified as red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. It's played on the piano. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. That is considered to be the basics of harmonics of light, and that is how light is refracted through a water droplet, giving us the phenomenon of the arc in the sky that we know as the rainbow. So this relates directly to the optical light phenomenon of light that emanates from the nearest star to you. Stars are points of consciousness. They emit light that is not just optical light. They're not just dead, stupid nuclear furnaces in the sky. They're alive presences that are geniuses that are creating these complex timelines, possibilities, and probabilities that are being emanated as your light body, all right? So now, all of what I've just said is totally valid and wonderful and great for people who are new to the class. And we're going to go through what these layers of your being represent. But now I want to talk about the W-band, because this is stuff that relates to the suppression of consciousness and the things that have been difficulties for you to get through. Wide body area network. It is actually a type of slang where we are repurposing computer language to talk about the hijacking of the human energy field. So this white form over here is your anthropomorphic form, and then around it you have all of this stuff that's energy, timelines, and possibilities that is swirling around you. This is all connected and is connected non-locally. This is a series of events and ideas and abstractions that connect you to other people. This is how telepathy functions. This is how emotions function. This is how your heart center functions, that you are connected on an energetic level that is non-local. So locality means I can only pet my dog if my dog is, like, you know, within a 4-foot range of me, right? But non-local means I can pet my dog no matter where my dog is in any area of space-time. Like, she could be from 10,000 years ago, but I'm petting her 10,000 years ago. Or she could be 10,000 miles away, and I can reach her 10,000 miles away. So this energy field that surrounds your anthropomorphic layer of self is non-local. You connect to everyone else who is alive and radiating backward into deep antiquity and projecting forward into the potentials of the future. You're connected to a whole lot of stuff through this, and every single one of these layers of being represents a layer of consciousness and an, let's say, ascended or highly refined persona that you would consider to be coherent light family. It's your family. They are your light family, light beings. You're in a creative, co-creative reality structuring partnership between yourself as a biological level of entity and yourself as a non-biological, pure light form entity. That is what I am. I am Aurora. I am a light entity. And the W-band is a hijacking and unnatural mispurposing of this energy field. That what the W-band is, wide body area network, the use, malevolent use and non-consensual use of clank metal technology to be able to influence and hijack these energy fields so that, let's just get a yucky color, I call this the poop color, it sends erroneous signals through your chakras. So here's erroneous signals, and they're zigzags and they're doo-doo colored, and they come in here and then they bounce around through you, and maybe they make parts of your body feel uncomfortable or inflamed or diseased, and they bounce to the next person, and then they bounce through them and they create distortions and disease, and they bounce onto the next person. And none of that is supposed to be happening, and all of that is actually relatively new in your history of humanity. Like, it's been happening within the past 3 years very strongly, but it's been leading up to it over the past 20 years. It is the direct result of the implantation of, wait, I need to go back to my face so that I can do this, a series of unmentionables. Clutch your pearls now. These are the things that got implanted into your body that then make it possible to be connected to a non-natural signals network that is non-coherent and does not bring you to longevity. So the end result is you're supposed to have a series of chakras that are pristine. The chakras were mispurposed, hijacked, and deformed ages ago, creating what is known as the world of mortality. Now you cannot eat pure light. You have a vulnerable, mortal body that gets hungry, has empty unless you put food inside of it, and is imperiled by making wrong choices that it could hit the membrane of death and decompose. And that is original. That's like OG, original gangsta, original bad stuff. Then you have modern bad stuff. And modern bad stuff is the implantation of this stuff, which self-assembles out of the particles that are pollutants, that are actually exotic materials that don't originate from your world. It's all horrific. It's a horrific crime. It's wrong. It shouldn't be happening. I'm just informing you of something that shouldn't be happening, but we act against it every day. And that hijacks your natural neurology, mispurposes the natural flow of light and energy through your body, and sends these non-life affirming signals through you and through your whole entire network. So some very good videos from an independent person named Sabrina Wallace, who is a technological expert about these types of human computer systems, and did some very good direct analogy creation to give us language to talk about the hijacking of your chakras, but not even just the ancient flavor of hijacking your chakras. Now I will make a silly, bizarre joke. Like from Saturday Night Live, a long, long time ago, they used to have this character on there who was the grumpy old man, and he used to say, like, in my day, we knit a sweater the real way. We had 2 knitting needles, and we would knit them together with our hands, and we did it that way, and we liked it. We didn't use a newfangled knitting machine and knit a sweater in 2 minutes flat. And so imagine like the grumpy old man as a demon, being like, in my day, we hijacked chakras the right way. We, implanted guilt and shame, and we did some genetic modifications. We didn't need any of this modern, newfangled, clank, stuffy stuff here. That's unmentionable to hijack chakras and destroy people's lives. We did it the old way, and we liked it. Okay, silly joke is over now, but lightheartedness helps us to be able to recognize the things that are going on. So clearly, this is not part of my original curriculum or my notes from 10 years ago, as I really could not anticipate or know that I needed to speak to this. I spoke to 10 years ago the original hijacking and distortion of your energy fields and the disassociation of yourself from your coherent light family. So those chakras that exist around you, and we'll talk about the layers of reality that they represent, also represent refined characteristics and layers of being that are you or your family. You could claim them as you in another dimension, or you moving at a different rate through time, or you whom you will become in your future after different levels of experience and development, but things that you are deeply related to, and that the original disassociation from your chakras and your energy field disassociated you from your coherent light family. And when I say that you're an infant of consciousness, what's really happening is you are reacquainting yourself with that level of you are refamiliarizing yourself, literally becoming familiar with your family. Again, because you're light beings and your family is made of light, and that's who surrounds and supports and protects you as you're in physicality. And this is also a different lesson that will come later in the semester, but the basics of it are that you have a core and commitment to your coherent light family and your chakras, and they have a commitment to you. You both have the same goal. You both want to stay alive, like the Bee Gees song. You want to stay alive, and you want to make the right choices so that you don't hit the membrane of death, and that you're supposed to be working together with those aspects of self that are moving at a different rate through time. So I'll describe all of this, but I bring this up now in terms of the W band because that is a hijacking of these other organisms and entities. Like, these are light entities, not just like, the sun is not a dead, stupid thing that just emits optical light. It's an alive presence that also shapes our lives with the creative output that it emits. And the energy field that surrounds and interpenetrates your physicality biological structure, it's not just made of dead, stupid light either. It's alive, and it knows, and it feels, and it has a sense of self, and it's you. So you're like in a relationship with this other part of you that is different than biology, but still very, very deeply caring. This bad computer network that is using this type of stuff to send signals through your energy field without your permission is pooping on your family of light, and it's really not okay. So all of that is a deep conversation about how to find, true spiritual freedom in a world that is just diminishing your free willpower, your perception, everything is against cosmic law that's going on. So newcomers, you're rocking back and forth. You're like, just tell me the way things are supposed to be. Don't tell me all this bad stuff. I'm like, sorry, there's bad stuff. But there's bad stuff, and I must be honest about it. And it's part of the empowerment teaching. So before I go on any further, because I tend to just go 10 million miles an hour, go to some of these comments here. Okay, so Chloe, and again, thank you for being here, says, in finances, a fractal is a portion of a trading candlestick chart that is a pattern that can repeat itself from the past into possible futures. Traders use fractals as a pattern to speculate on future prices. Fascinating, very interesting, and very valid use of the concept of fractals, because what we're talking about are predictable patterns in time. So anytime that you are able to perceive a pattern, like if you can tell this is what a torus is shaped like, or if you know that this C in my piano, this C is going to be half the wavelength of this C. You can't hear this one that's higher, but they're related, like 6 and 12. If you know that if I have a 12-inch circle, I know there's going to be a 6-inch circle somewhere. There are ways of being able to perceive and anticipate reality based upon the knowledge of fractal patterns. So thank you for sharing that with us, and being able to utilize that knowledge and apply it to finances is a wonderful state of empowerment. You can do this on every level, the biological level, the level of your personal life in terms of repetitive patterns that happen, that come up over and over. You can also use this in order to perceive patterns and larger dynamics throughout all of human history. And there's interesting stuff, and I talk about this in later lessons in the semester. A very wild character named Terence McKenna, not a total endorsement of the man, but he definitely was a computer genius. He's not on Earth anymore. And in the 1980s, when very few people had access to complex home computers, he had one, and he used it to create this algorithm called time wave zero, where he basically mapped the unusual cultural events that happened throughout human history and found a regularity to it, which is just like saying when you're a little baby and you're making sense of your senses. You're like, wow, like first I see a bright light, and then there's this weird moving shape in front of my face, and then something goes in my mouth. And then, then they like, whatever, touch my toes, and then I feel something happen, and then I get, turned over on this side. Like there becomes a regularity in a pattern in what is going on. And you're like, at a certain point, like, oh, they turn on the light, they come into my crib, my mom picks me up, that's my mom who's the moving shape, put like, a bottle or a boobie into my mouth. And that's what's going on in that situation. So you're in the process of kind of like, imagine like your eyes are squinting, like you're not fully open yet, making sense of the reality structure that you are a part of. And there's a regularity in the things that happen in the dynamics of human history, your life as an individual, and even day to day, like every day the sun is going to come up, and then every day at 12 noon this is going to happen, and then every day at 6 p.m. the sun is going to do a different thing, and then the trees are going to do this and the animals are going to do this. Like, you recognize these predictable cycles that happen, and it's actually hugely empowering to be able to make sense of the world by recognizing these cycles. Aurelia says, my best friend gets called the rainbow in the street too. Ah, that's beautiful, fellow rainbow person. Okay, so that's actually good segue and refocus for me to talk about what are the colors of the rainbow. So first of all, when I talk about this, we're talking about light. And adding colors and color mixing and color theory in the world of pure light is actually different than color theory as it relates to the world of pigments and paints, which is what I experience as an artist. So if you came here into my art studio and you took all of my rainbow paints and you poured them together into one bucket, you would actually not come up with beautiful white light. You would actually come up with a horrible, murky, brownish, grayish, blackish mess. And I would be sad. That would look very ugly. That's the world of pigments, which is not additive color mixing, it is subtractive color mixing. Not to confuse you, but the way that I made green, can hardly even see it in these lighting conditions, green for the color of this sculpture when I painted it by mixing together blue and yellow. Blue and yellow make green. And that is truthful in the world of pigments, and that is also truthful in the world of light mixing, which would be like laser light or stage lighting or anything where you're mixing just pure colors of light. But here in this pigment, when you are putting pigments together, what you're doing is actually blocking out certain frequencies. So the convoluted surface shape of the molecules means that these colors are being filtered out, as opposed to in the world of pure light, you're doing additive color mixing. And that means that you're never going to get black when you add light together. The more and more and more light that you add, you're moving further and further away from black, which would be darkness, and closer and closer and closer to pure white light. So white light is the primacy of consciousness that emerges from the singularity, which is here. And white light is also the original undiluted information that emerges to us from the sun. The sun is not a dead nuclear furnace just sending off tons of radiation and infrared heat and optical light and all sorts of crazy things are happening there. No, the sun is actually an incredibly orderly, genius, super genius node on a enormous galactic scale supercomputer. And the light that it is emitting, key point here, we in our human bodies on this planet calibrate to that light as being the white light of truth. Like here's truth. That's just going to be the color white, and we know that that is truthful. Actually, in the larger cosmic context, the light from our sun is yellowish green. It's actually not pure white, but that doesn't matter, because what matters is your perception. That we calibrate to that as our nearest beacon of truth by recognizing that what our star emits is white, and that everything else is a ingredient, a constituent element of that white light. So if the white light is analogous to cake, all right, the cake has a recipe, and the recipe contains non-arbitrary proportions. You guys know with cooking, you can fly by the seat of your pants and make things up and you don't have to measure. But with baking, you must measure. You know this. With baking, you must measure. So you must measure out exactly 2 cups of flour, exactly 1 cup of sugar, exactly a cup of butter, half a teaspoon of salt, you know, a 1/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda. You cannot mess with these things, because if you do, what you will end up with is either like a pancake, like something that doesn't rise, something that's burned horribly, or something that's rock hard. Like there's boundaries of what is acceptable for it to still be cake. And it's the same thing with the energy that we get from the sun. Let's go back to one of my wonderful pictures here. I think this one is the perfect one to use. Because these the sizes of these circles and the colors that are here represent the recipe of consciousness that is flowing to us from the sun. So in this recipe, the analogy of flour, the biggest part of the cake recipe, is red, and red represents the physical realm. The physical realm here is defined not only as your somatic, cellular, biological body, but it is defined as all matter, the stuff that you walk upon and experience, and all of the edifices or potentials of matter, like your house where you live, the events of things coming into and out of your house, and all the other people and all the other events. Red represents the physical realm. And the next, and it is the most dense level of reality. The next greatest level in the recipe, and the less dense level, my language was terrible there, but the next thing that you have the most of in the recipe is going to be sugar. That's going to be your orange level. And you have, it is your emotional realm. So now we also have to talk about a distinction of human and mammalian emotions from the level of green, which is unconditional love. So the level of orange, as you can see, well, you can't see in this picture, wait, go to my whole entire desktop here. Share my whole thing. So you can see in this human form over here, orange is down here below the navel. The convergence point of orange, even though technically your emotional centers extend throughout your whole entire biological body, but they are focused in the area that is known as your intestines and your reproductive organs. And that is where you have a lot of your mammalian emotions centered. So mammalian emotions have to do with attraction, revulsion, hatred, loyalty, jealousy, possessiveness, let's call it snoogliness, or, affection, like hugging and kissing type of affection, joy, happiness, elations and ecstasies and orgasms. And those emotions are the next ingredient that is required in the cake of reality. And you have more, emotional energy than you have intellectual energy, but less emotional energy than you have physical energy. So the physical world is the world that you live in, and then it contains your emotional reality. And then within that, and smaller than that, you have yellow. Yellow is at the level of your solar plexus, which is known as your conscious daily waking intellect. And this is called your mind, but it is not your true mind. There are implantations that have happened as genetic modifications that have suppressed and diminished humanity for many, many millennia. That is an artificial implantation of the verbalized talking mind and the intellectual mind of analysis. It is known as your daily waking intellect, because when you go to sleep, what happens is you turn off that mind. Because if you kept that mind talking for 24 hours, your body could never heal and rejuvenate itself. This is your body. Your body is like, shut up, stop talking. I just need to do cellular repair. So that's what you do at night while you go to sleep. Your brain shuts up and your body could finally do its cellular repair. I'm being joking to your brain, but truly the human operating system is a flawed operating system that is intentionally flawed, and it doesn't arise from humanity. It was foisted upon you. And now I need to talk about evolutionary biology, but let's just say that these 3 layers of reality are what humans were originally defined as over much of human history. Let's see if I can get the annotation. I might have to hop back in. Let's stop share and hop back in. Over the great part of human history, humans were defined as red, orange, and yellow. Having a physical body, here, look. Hey kid, you got a physical body, that's clear. And then also, hey kid, you got some emotions in there. Everybody has felt like anger, hatred, confusion, and then on top of there, thoughts, human thought processes. The level of yellow over here is the mind defining itself as the mind, and it defines itself as the pinnacle of existence. It's like, that's it. You're a physical container with some mammalian emotions and some human intellect on top. That's the definition of what it is to be human. But I am mocking that with my sarcasm, because really, you embody all of this. This class is called Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. I'm trying to make a bracket encompassing the entirety of this full rainbow. My obsession with rainbow has nothing to do with things that are just cool or fun or decorative, although rainbows are cool and fun and decorative, and it does not have anything to do with the social construct of, gender identity and sexual partnership, even though I have no judgment on those activities. I chose the rainbow because there is profound inherent truth in the structure of light. It relates to your light body, and in this case, your light body is not optical light, but let's call it biophotons, and let's call your light body your biofield, energy field, and that what it has in common with light, that is optical light, is the movement in waves. Because the figure 8s that I'm teaching you, if you deconstruct those waves, you end up with a sine wave, which is an up and a down. I'll draw this for you many, many times, but just imagine a peak and a trough, or a circle that's been cut in half, and you have the upper circle, upper arc, and then the lower circle. you're a full spectrum human. You guys are in this class because you're full spectrum humans. You're not just a physical container with some mammalian emotions that kind of, motivate you around. Like some people you hate, some people you love, some people you want to hug, some people you want to have sex with, some people you want to chop their heads off. And then some human intellect that allows you to use language and write down words on top of that. That is not who you are, but that was the definition of humanity for a very long amount of time. That's humans in their genetically modified form have identified only with this. We would formerly call it the lower nature, but in this class, especially over the past 10 years, everybody's been integrating. So you don't just have a lower nature, and you don't have a lower nature separated and bifurcated from your upper nature. You have one harmonically integrated whole. But I'm just going to do a very, very brief teaching now about your brain, because your brain stem, this is your top of your spinal cord and the part of your neurology that keeps you just breathing. That is analogous to your red chakra. And then this is your cerebellum and the mammalian brain. That is the areas of emotion. These are simplified structures in terms of evolutionary biology, where you have the emotions that mitigate the impulses that come from pure survival drive. So survival drive is like, look, I gotta stay alive, I gotta breathe air, I gotta eat food, I gotta have water, and I gotta have sex and make new babies. That's the survival drive that happens in the brainstem over here. But the mammalian cortex mitigates those things, and it's like, well, you can't just kill that guy and take his food to stay alive, because someone's gonna feel bad. Get it? Your feelings help to mitigate those impulses. And you're like, yep, you can't just steal that person and impregnate them so that you can have the future generation. Someone's going to feel bad. It is the beginning of learning to live in community. And then on top of there, now I'm trying to draw like the convoluted surface layer that is on top of all of that. That is what is analogous to the yellow layer, the cerebrum. The cerebrum is the convoluted surface area of your brain where science, which is intellect stuff, presumes that thought occurs. But there are actually many other places in your body and organ systems where thought occurs. But that is where your daily waking human intellect is seated on the convoluted surface of your brain. So that I'm telling a story here in biology. Your body developed, but it developed in this very unnatural way. And you have huge flaws and problems. What are the huge flaws and problems? So your operating system, OS human, you did not install it willingly yourself. It actually is part of bad overlord stuff that you didn't want to put inside of you, but was put inside of you that diminished your connection to your highest self and God itself. The talking of the daily waking intellect not only is so loud that your body's like, shut up, I'm just trying to regenerate my cells, can you just shut up? Your body is also like this, I'm trying to listen to God. I am just trying, can you just shut, I'm talking to my intellect, can you just shut up 5 minutes, because I'm just trying to heal my body and listen to God, and all I can hear is the stupid talking of, a human intellect. I'm joking, but that is kind of truthful, and which is why meditation and mindfulness is so important, and we have a whole lesson all about meditation and mindfulness. But just know that the problems are they implanted a verbalized mind into you that does not have an off button. And this is, I say this every semester, analogous to when they first came up with the iPod, not the iPad, but it was like a little music device. This is over 10 years ago, and I didn't even know what it was. Someone showed it to me, and they're like, yeah, you can put music on here. And then I perked up. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Tell me more. And they showed me that there's like a play button that you press to start it. And I'm like, okay, where's the off button? They're like, there is no off button. Like, there's no off button? There is no off button. But there is a pause button. So Apple engineering, very, very crafty, even at the beginning of what they were doing there, to give you something that has an on button but no off button. It's exactly what they did with the human mind. It is a ponderous, poorly constructed operating system that makes you verbalize your thoughts and is associative and makes you say all sorts of things and think all sorts of things with your mind all the time. And it has no off button. Once you get that going as a little tiny child, that's just going to be talking inside of your mind all the time. unless you go into unconsciousness, which is the respite that you find in sleep. And that none of that is intentional. And also the OS that was brought into you, not only in terms of its incessant chatter, but also it's got backdoors. So backdoors is like, if any of you guys are unfortunate enough to have to use Microsoft products, their Office suite, or anything in their computer people are laughing knowingly, because it's not good stuff. Apple's not perfect, but Microsoft is like really the dark side. They put back doors into their software, and it used to be kind of hidden. Now it's overt. Like they can reach right in and they can be like, oh, yeah, no, you're not using C drive as your primary storage unit anymore. You're using D drive. And you're like, where did all of my photos go? Where did this go? Somebody call a 20-year-old. I need an answer to this. You know what I mean? Like you call a young person when you need to know about IT stuff. It's like, call a college student. We need to know where's the D drive. And it turns out like Microsoft just reached into your computer and was like, no, yoink. All family photos are now being stored over here because it's more convenient for us. And then you ask whatever your son or your grandson who's in college, and he's like, oh yeah, you find it over here, and Microsoft just moved it for you. And then you're like, they reached into my computer and they moved my files. I said, yes, that's exactly what they did. That is what they do. So now this is normal. But this used to be worthy of decrying. I decry, but now this is normal. So it's not very good. Definitely goes against boundaries. That's an analogy for stuff that reaches into your mind and messes with your memories, which is like your hard drives, your emotions, your sense of self, all sorts of important information and files that should be there that it doesn't want you to have access to. This is why humans don't have perfect recall. Can you imagine? You guys are supposed to have perfect recall. Do you even know what your life would be like? Some people might consider that a curse, but I have one friend. He's still alive. He's a lovely person. He's in Tahoe. And I've known him. He's probably my longest chronological friendship. And he'll say to me something like, he remembers every conversation. He'll say to me something like, do you remember when you said blah, blah, blah? We were sitting on a log. It was 2003. We were at blah, blah park. And you said blah, 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 blah. And I would be like, no, I actually do not. I do not remember that at all, and find it quite extraordinary that you can remember that I said that. So yeah, this is a lovely friend who remembers literally everything. That is considered quite an extraordinary gift. I have another family member who remembers, but not so much now that they're almost in their 80s, but they would just arbitrarily remember everybody's phone number. Like if you just, sometimes you need to call someone, you just need to remember that phone number for like 5 minutes, just long enough to call someone, but he remembers them for forever. That, again, could be considered a bit burdensome, but he has that as a gift in his mind, extremely, well-formed memories. But actually, we're all supposed to have this. This is actually the healthy, functional behavior of you when your operating system is the way it's supposed to be, in a pristine system. We're all supposed to be able to remember everything every day, everything that happened every day, everything that was said, everything that was done, and that's part of learning and growth and positive mental behavior. So it's actually very unusual that information goes into us and then somehow evaporates outward, and then I can't remember phone numbers just for forever. I have to work hard to try to memorize things and remember to maintain. Like if I'm going to learn a song on the piano, I have to practice it many, many times to be able to remember that pattern and keep it inside of me. And if I don't do it, it goes away. That's not how our brain is supposed to actually work. So there's something that's not frictionless. There's something that is highly friction-filled in our brain that is preventing us from being able to use the utmost of our capabilities, and that this is one of the hacks of your operating system. So yeah, there's a lot of problems with the human mind, including everything that you would be considered to be an obsession, a distraction, or an addiction is the non-healthy, non-functioning of the human mind. Like literally, if you have trouble with attention, if you're like, okay, I'm just gonna sit down and write this email, and you're like, oh, hey, a squirrel. That is a malfunctioning of your human operating system. And it's not that you're a bad person at all. It's that you have faulty equipment. You have Microsoft reaching into your mind, which is, we'll get into it later in the semester, but negative thought entities that are having a negative impact on your clarity and on your sovereignty. And they are not your coherent light family. And all of that predates the W ban. But now we must go further than merely the definition of red, orange, yellow. We call this Roy G. Biv, right? You're more than just Roy, red, orange, yellow. You're not just Roy. You're the whole G. Biv, all right, everyone? So what is upward from yellow? The next one is green. That is situated here at the level of your heart and the center of your chest. And you could consider that to be the fulcrum or the central pivot point or the central clearinghouse of all signals in your body, because signals come to us from a higher dimensional, less dense realm where energy is moving faster into us and into the physicality form where we are dense. But then information from the level of density, which is your sensorium, your five senses. Like, I'm holding on to a sculpture. This is what it feels like. My feet are walking along. This is what it feels like. You know, I'm smelling this. I'm looking at this. I'm feeling and hearing this. All of that is information that comes from your viewpoint that you then broadcast back to the sun and the stars and God as a receiver, or the singularity point as a receiver. And all of that information in both directions, you as a bidirectional giant biological transceiver, comes through the clearinghouse of your heart. So saying that you have an open heart is not merely a sappy, allegory. It is very literal. Like, your heart is supposed to be a conduit, and signals are supposed to run through that conduit without denial or judgment. Like, if you start to get information from your highest senses up here, that might be challenging. Like, maybe you get an insight about something that's ugly. Maybe you're like, wow, that guy's not a good person. And if it has to come through the clearinghouse of your heart to get to your intellect here in your sternum, then if your heart is closed, then you're like, I'm in denial. I can't hear that information about that guy. Maybe he's your friend. Maybe he's your boss. Can't hear that information for whatever reason. So the openness of your heart really has to do with how receptive you are to accurate information. Your heart also creates a tone. It is analogous to an A on the piano, but not a 440A, a 432A. And I got to get my other instruments set up for my harmonics class, because that's where you get the real love tone. But when you have an equal giving and receiving, that is when you actually are in love. So love that is romantic. Wait, I will tilt my camera. This is mammalian love. Down here, below your belly button, that's where your guts are. It's where your intuition is. It's where your reproductive organs are. That's its own level of love. That's like, I love you. I love you. I really, really love you. But this heart center here is a different level of love. It is cosmic love, a partnerless love that really represents total acceptance and the concept of equal giving and receiving. You can be in love with time, as time is giving to you 1 unit of time per units, and as you are receiving 1 unit per unit. So imagine, here I am walking on my treadmill. It's actually perfect, because I receive 1 unit of treadmill distance, and then my foot goes down. 1 unit of distance and my foot goes down. It keeps me in a balance and in a rapport. Otherwise, I would go backwards, or otherwise I would get all the way up to the screen. So I maintain a stasis by receiving exactly the same amount as I am efforting. That is positive. None of this is running on the hamster wheel. People who are hijack chakra people, they're like, no, I'm running on the karmic hamster wheel. Get me off of this thing. I hate it. And I'm like, just calm down. You're going to be okay. Don't worry, because I got real tools for physical freedom here. But love is not an imprisonment. Love, so being alive in the perpetual motion machine of your chakras is not an imprisonment, it's an opportunity, and love is literally the gas that makes your car go. It is a tone with your voice. Ooh. And you make that tone when there's an equal giving and receiving. So we think about this, bouncing energy back and forth between 2 boundaries. You can have, here's different levels of infinity. We'll go over this many times. Infinity can be, here is starting point A, and infinity goes onward from starting point A in infinite amount. Boom, it starts here and then just goes infinitely. But infinity can also be an infinite reflection between 2 finite places. If I start off here and I move over to here, but then I bounce and I move back to here, and then I bounce and I move back to here, and I keep on bouncing back and forth between these two boundaries, I can have an infinite journey. That does not necessarily involve 10 million billion miles of infinite space. It can involve 2 inches. You can have an infinite journey within 2 inches. And that is really the concept of what the love tone and the rapport of love is all about. That you are creating this oscillation of sending out energy and receiving energy. You send out energy to your environment, you receive energy from your environment. You receive energy of consciousness from the sun and the stars, it circulates through you, and then you send it back to the sun and the stars. That is how you create the love tone. So you're in love with the sun, you're in love with time, you're in love with life as you receive and give. And all of that requires the non-judgment, the openness of your heart to be able to do that. So it's different than the jokingly way that I talk about, mammalian emotions where you're like, I love you, and hearts come out of your eyes. It's not like that. It's not that type of attachment or attraction or romantic attraction. You don't necessarily want to make babies with things that you are in love with on an abstract level. So you can love the planet, time itself. You can love matter and energy and consciousness, but none of it means that you want to make babies with those things. Those things are abstractions. Getting to that level was considered the level of green for much of human history, like the ultimate attainment. That's not even the top of the mountain. That is just base camp. That is just the capacity to make this love tone and be in love with life. And that it makes it possible for you to matriculate to the University of the Universe, which means for you to then go into the higher faculties that humanity has been cut off from for a very long amount of time. So you came here, you were supposed to be connected through your heart to your higher faculties, but you had these genetic diminishments, including verbalized mind, that made it very difficult for you to feel them and to sense that level of your truthfulness, because it's you. It's you up there, it's not something else. So this is what I define as the higher faculties. Your tone of unconditional love, it's like a plateau, your heart. And then on top of there, you have your throat chakra, which is light blue. And this includes communication. It's communication as you think about it, the flapping of your moving mouth parts, but it's also anything that you do that comes out of your throat from your collarbones. Gesturing, playing the piano, drawing and writing a painting, or making a sculpture. Anything that you do with your hands is going to be part of that communication. And up from there, so that's light blue, up from there is the level of dark blue. And this is affiliated with your brow and also your pineal gland, but it's not synonymous with those. We'll have a whole teaching all about exactly that part of your body, but that is your Christ consciousness. And it's an aperture for light. Just like on your face, most people have 2 eyes that are apertures for light. Light comes in through there. You also have a non-physical aperture for light that is data and information. And this is your true mind. Not your solar plexus down here, not the incessantly talking mind that you develop when you come here as an infant. And you develop that in order to have an interface so that you can even talk to people. When I first came here as Aurora, I did not have an effective interface. I didn't have a name, a self-story, good vocabulary, the capacity to choose words, and all of those things. It's very, very similar to your own journeys, except my journey was in adulthood. And I learned, if you have no interface, you're not going to get anything done. It's very, very essential. So there are a lot of amazing people here who are nonverbal. They're considered developmentally disabled. They have tons of stuff inside of them that's valuable, like their thoughts, their feelings, their worldview, their emotion, but they can't interface with you. It all stays inside of them. And that's a loss, but they're still wonderful people that are here, living their existence in a way that is, divine for them. So, your true mind is a nonverbal mind. This is your insight, and your insight is even different than your intellect. Again, I'm pointing at my belly, where my my intestines are. Your intellect is your guts, and that's like, I felt it in my guts. I just intuited, like, that guy was bad. But when you have your insight, you don't just have an intuition that someone is bad. You have very, very clear information. You can look at a person and you can read them like a book, and you don't just sense like, oh, that they're bad or naughty. You're like, you know exactly what they did. You can see it all. And the real challenge is to be open-hearted enough to accept the truthful information that you see with your insight, because you're going to see a lot of stuff. It's dark stuff. It's very, very challenging to live at that level. The level of Christhood involves an enormous amount of love, a foundation of unconditional love. And then that's not the end of the journey, because when you're seeing through your insight, you are still interpreting through your anthropomorphic filter, the human-shaped filter, the raw information that is just the waveform presence of the world. You really reach spiritual freedom and attainment when you get to the top of the mountain. Violet, this is your connection to divinity. It is your crown chakra. It is analogous to every single nucleus in your body. Every single nucleus in your body is your crown chakra, connecting to divinity through the sacredness of your DNA and your DNA's dance and formation. And it is the crown chakra up here that really guides and informs what the brow chakra over here, what you should be looking at and how you should be interpreting it. This up here, your divine connection that is at the crown, is mathematically perfect. Empirical. 1 + 1 = 2. Don't argue with me. And these two parts of your body are actually intimately connected. This part of your body here, your Christ chakra, is actually not an egotistical, hypermaniac. It actually defers in power structure to the violet chakra at the top. It's like, if you're telling me this, then that's what's true, because you do the math and I'm just interpreting things on the human level. You got it? That's really important information. File that away for your future and for your journey. That when you first start to awaken in your light body senses, you might see something and know about it through your insight on a human level. But that's not the level of pure abstraction. When it looks like the stuff that's on my fabric here, just polygons and vectors, that's how you know you're in the crown. And when you're at that level, then you don't argue. 1 + 1 = 2. Particle A plus particle B interacted for result C. And that's it. And if particle A is an evil person who, used a weapon and killed particle B and result C was death, then that's coming through this insight, human anthropomorphic filter, and you have a whole emotional cascade as a result of that. But if I just tell you particle A, particle B, result C, you're like, okay, that's just what happened. It's very, very non-interpretive level of reality experience. And that is where I receive my information from, and that is where I'm coming from when I make these paintings that are maps of time. And I'm just trying to be as accurate as possible. So in your own journey, as you are climbing this mountain of spiritual attainment. So again, it used to be considered that only special people that lived in a monastery or, whatever, spent their whole life praying or something like that, got to the level of having a heart. That was the Roy, not even Roy G. Biv, just red, orange, yellow. Like everyone else, you're just gonna push a wheelbarrow full of doo-doo, and that's your day. And then some people get to pray all day in a monastery, and they might get to this level of love. That's not how you're supposed to be structured. Actually, everybody in the whole entire world is supposed to be able to get to that level of unconditional love and also access these higher faculties, because these higher faculties are literally what allow you to navigate through time and avoid the membrane of death, to be able to see the future, make great choices, be free will empowered to follow those choices and return to the source that emanated you, which is your destination in time. That's what I talk about, the accuracy of coordinates like latitude and longitude. Like, you don't just want to be kind of in the neighborhood. If you only navigated by your brow chakra, you would be kind of in the neighborhood. So wait, I'll do it like this. If you navigated only using your orange intuition, then you'd be in the right state or in the right country. but not even like in the right town, all right? If you navigated using your insight, but just still on the anthropomorphic level and not on the level of abstraction, you'd be in the right town, but you wouldn't know exactly where. You wouldn't know which street or which building. But if you are navigating using your divine connection, your violet chakra, and the pure abstraction, the pure truth of empirical knowledge and abstraction, then you have the exact right street, the exact right moment, the exact right chair in the cafe that you're supposed to sit in, and even the exact latte that you're supposed to order. All of that, that's how exact it is. So you keep moving in your levels of attainment to get up to that level of achievement. If you're not there yet, just hold your considerations until you get there. Be like, maybe I'm not going to don't jump to conclusions. Maybe I'm going to find out something else, because you're just still in generalities. That is the truth of what each one of these layers of reality is, as I show you this. So some of my paintings each have their own levels of like greater levels of accuracy and non-accuracy. This one has some levels of greater accuracy, but then some non-accuracy in terms of where the lower edge of the physical chakra is. But as you're moving energy through these different levels of your own chakra system, my language started out so wrong there. Let me start again. Every single one of these colors represents a layer of reality, and it is energy that is moving at a different rate through time. So your physical reality structure body is moving at a particular rate through time. And your orange structure is moving slightly faster, yellow slightly faster, until we get all the way up to violet, which is moving at the fastest rate through time. In terms of emergence into reality space, your violet aspect of self has only barely dipped its toe into the pool of reality manifestation. So your physicality is like you dove all the way into reality. You're fully in, you're in up to your eyeballs, all right? But your violet self is an aspect of self that is still moving so fast and is so abstract. It's like, imagine if I took my pinky and I just put like a tiny little bit of my pinky into the pool of reality. I'm really not submerged fully in the pool of reality. I am largely abstract. So you have all of these different layers of self that represent different degrees to which you are immersed in the physical world, from fully immersed to barely immersed. So the DNA and the nuclei of your cells and this crown chakra up here would be considered the barest level of immersed into physical reality. Those are actually highly abstract levels of your body being that really are not the same as like physical dense layers. That's why I say all the time, your DNA is a bridge of light. It is still a perceptible molecular structure in your body, but what it really is a bridge of light into the level, it's a conceptual bridge of pure information into your level of being that is a non-physical being of pure information, all right? Yeah, big stuff there. And the dance and the movement and the formation of your DNA is itself a form of information that is a non-physical, it's an ephemeral. So when I say light body, what I'm talking about is ephemera, something that is not stuff that is energy stuff that is in existence. Okay, I think I might be losing steam for trying to talk about things that are hard to talk about. Let's go to questions over here. Okay, wait. All right. Allison, thank you for being here. Says, book recommendation to shut down the inner incessant chatterbox. The Untethered Soul. It sounds a good investment at only $10. She says, well worth the investment. Thank you for that suggestion. Really, really appreciate it. So yes, there are many different approaches and schools of thought and teachers throughout the ages that have been here to say, here's the tips of the trade. Here's how I quiet down my mind inside. That mind is not only a part of your culture now. that is actually a mind that has been in existence for 4,000 years, 5,000 years, 22,000 years. We don't even know how long. It's been around for a long amount of time. The key point is it actually is not your human mind. And we'll reference the work of Carlos Castaneda, Active Side of Infinity, and talk about the origins of that mind as we kind of get closer and closer to it throughout the semester. But just know that's not your natural state. When you came here as a baby, did you come here talking? No, you did not. You came here in your natural mind state. You actually came here with a perfect, divinely connected mind, and then you had to learn how to talk to your family because you needed to say things like, I'm hungry, wah, and also my diaper's uncomfortable and needs to be changed. Like you had very, very, practical needs to be able to communicate to the world. And then there's also the issue of functionality and being able to share your mind and being able to earn money and all those things. There's many reasons why you achieved verbalism in the world. But that's not the end of your journey, because you came here without a voice and then you became verbal in your mind. And then through this book or through different meditative practices, you have to learn how to control your mind. You have to learn how to turn it off. You got to give that sucker an off button. Be like, quiet down, please, because I got to do different stuff like listen to God. Or I got to do different stuff like do the flying rainbow lasagna. Or I got to do different stuff like heal and rejuvenate my whole entire body structure. So very, very essential to recognize what the mind is, that it is not the pinnacle of your existence, and then come up with effective tools for how to be free. But look at me, like I use my mind in order to talk about this whole class for many hours. It's like it's a good tool, but it's not mostly what I'm doing, because mostly what I'm doing is art, music, dance, things that don't involve the flapping of my moving mouth parts. So, and there's real limitations to our mind, the human daily waking intellect. Aurelia says, I randomly remember details like that, but not all of them. And says, I remember very specific details of certain things. People think it's weird that I know everything eye color, even if I just met them, but I don't remember what I cooked for lunch yesterday. Yes, some people have this type of memory where they can remember everything and they consider it burdensome. So like, I remember stupid random details in every lunch that I've ever had and every calendar date. And I guess it depends on the quality of your existence, but that could certainly be considered an asset in what a person is experiencing. So wait, now let me just go through my notes in order to make sure that I've gotten to everything that's important. Hold on, pressing buttons. I know I make silly, funny faces. You guys are learning me very well. I make silly, funny faces when I go all the way through. Oh, I included advanced level 1 in the notes that I sent out, but sorry. Okay. Okay. I have to talk about your indigo and your violet chakra and how they are complementary. So in this, and we'll go over this many times, in this shape you can see that there are 2 vortices that are oriented horizontally and 2 vortices that are oriented vertically. And these are actually complementary to one another. So when I show you this image over here, I think this is the best, clearest version of this. All right, and get the annotation. Hooray. And get a color that you can actually see. When I'm not showing you double chakras, when I'm just showing you 2 vortices, you hopefully can see the red vortex is oriented vertically, the violet vortex oriented vertically. All of the rest of these vortices are oriented horizontally. So what that means is, if I go back to my face, the traditional depiction of an angel with a halo in religious art shows the violet chakra at this orientation. And then you also have your red chakra, which is much, much bigger, a big giant hoop that goes all around your body. But all of the other chakras are oriented kind of like buttons on a shirt in this way. Why is this? Because of gyro stabilization. Brief pause. Thank you for that. Apologies, just had to feed Professor Cheeky. So you have some of your chakras that are oriented at this angle, but some of your chakras that are oriented at this angle. We must talk about what is gyrostabilization. Gyrostabilization happens in something like a helicopter, where you have the blades of the helicopter that whirl around like this, and then the rotor of the tail that whirls around like this. And it creates complementary vectors and forces and energy fields that stabilize the helicopter's flight through physical space, all right? What your chakras are doing is stabilizing your flight through time. When this chakra and this chakra interpenetrate at a 90-degree angle and they are spinning with an adequate amount of energy, they stabilize your flight through time. You're on a particular timeline, which would be like saying you're flying through the sky in a particular height and at a particular direction, and you want to stay flying on that timeline because you're going in a positive direction. It is the interplay between these two aspects of your anatomy that create that gyro-stabilizing effect. Back to my notes. Silly buttons. Okay, I think I already got the four-lobed shape, but I'm going to do this more in subsequent because we're all saturated. We're going to finish up class for right now because I don't want your brains to explode. I'm a good teacher. I don't want your brains to explode. But here you have this four-lobed shape, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's very similar to the things that I showed you at the beginning of the painting. 1, 2, 3, 4. They fit inside of here. Here, 4 lobes, 1, 2, 3, 4. Except what you actually have are 8 lobes because I was just holding half of the sculpture in my hand. But you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then on the back it's a cross section, 5, 6, 7, 8. So everything I'm showing you is a cross section that you are split in half. The lobe shapes are the negative space of this 4-vortex shape. Negative space in art talk does not mean bad space. It means the space that is receptive where you can put stuff. So for example, the negative space of my cup is the place where I can put water in my cup. The negative space in a sculpture or the negative space in this carafe would be the place that actually holds water or is receptive to something. So negative not being bad or wrong or evil, but meaning that it can hold something. I already got that your chakras are made of time, so this is your time body. And what we're fighting with the W band then is a hijacking of your time body. Got all of that. Oh, what I did not get to was Pedro's wonderful acronym. Okay, so game over, try again. Let's end class on this, and I'll of course open the floor to any questions or comments. So this has to do with the flow of energy around this vortex over here that is your life. Let's go to my little whiteboard over here and let's talk about game over, try again. This is important stuff. So when you are circulating through here, you are born at the edge, and then, let's get a proper color, you move upward as you're moving through time, and you hit the membrane of death. And then what happens? Do you just stay there? No. You actually dissolve. You learn about your life, you make better choices, and you come back to the next timeline. You start here. And then you move upward through that timeline until you die. Wah, wah. And so we joke about game over, try again, as if you are playing a video game, but life is not a video game. It is much more meaningful. But I'm only familiar with Pac-Man. Like, you know, your Pac-Man dies, and it makes that little sound. Pac-Man dissolves away, and then it starts at the beginning again. Dun, 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 dun. You're dead, and then start again. And so that's what happens is then your little guy dissolves on the membrane of death, and you circulate around, and you come back to here, and you try it again. So what causes your initial death? Initially, when you're a baby, very few things that are in your control. Babies don't kill themselves. They die because the umbilical cord was wrapped around their neck, or they breathed in something that killed them, or they got a microbial infestation, or the nurse dropped them on their head, or many, many other things. They got hit by a bomb in a war. But that's it. Babies otherwise, would stay alive. So you die of things that are largely outside of your control, and you circulate back to the beginning and try to do it again. When by the time you're starting to get to be a toddler, you make more of your own decisions. Where someone tells you Don't touch that sharp object. You touch the sharp object and you die. Dun, 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 dun. You're dead. Circulate back to the beginning. And then all of these other things. And so here, you start from here at the bottom. And maybe you're riding your bicycle with no helmet and you die. And then you circulate back to the beginning. But this time, you know, wear a helmet. Don't die. Don't touch that sharp object. And also avoid those microbes. And then all of this is a refinement process until, like, you get to here. And maybe you're on that timeline, you're able to live to be like 35 or 45 years old. And what that means is that you have accumulated soul knowledge. It is not intellectual knowledge. As you have gone through these many iterations, you've been pressing the wrong notes on the piano, where you're like, is that the right note? No, that's not right. That one. No, that's not right. That one. No. Like, you keep on going around and around and around rather exhaustively until you finally get to, that's the right note, the note of immortality, the note where you do not die. So you're supposed to be able to see with your mind crystal and anticipate the future and not have to press any wrong notes. But you're in this genetically modified body in a very, very unfair, non-pristine system, which you should be distressed about. It's not fair. It's not okay. But just know that the original pristine system, when we lived or still live in ancient concurrent Atlantis, nobody ever died. Nobody ever hit the membrane of death. Every single one of us incarnated, had the most wonderful, expansive adventures, made the most informed and incredible life decisions, totally avoided disease, decrepitude, and death, and then reunited and reconnected with God, which is the source that emanated us. Came home and was like, wow, like, you'll never guess the adventures I've been through. I did all this, and this, with a total continuity of consciousness. And the concept of death is actually an aberration, something that was genetically modified into your form and is not your natural state of being. So I'm going to complete our class on that. That information right there, if you're new, that's just going to take a lot of time for you to completely restructure around. Because when you first came here as a little tiny infant, you're like this. You don't have a mind, you don't have a name, you don't know who you are. You're still in that state where, like, weird shapes and colors happen and something goes inside of your mouth. And you're like, I'm alive, and you don't even know about death. You just roll around and exist, and you're part of everything, part of the ocean of consciousness. You don't even know about death. And it's not until maybe age 3 or 4, that is mostly when people have the formative experience of either a goldfish, or maybe your hamster, or maybe your grandma, or someone in your life dies. And you ask, you're like, Mommy, Daddy? Like, where is the goldfish? Where is grandma? And they say, like, the goldfish went bye-bye. And maybe you go to a funeral for grandma and everybody is sad. You're like, where's grandma? And they're like, grandma went bye-bye. And that is the beginning of the change of the behavior of your DNA. That it literally changes what was a totally free and divinely connected perfect pattern into something that incorporates the knowledge and acceptance of death. And if this sounds like analogous to stuff from the Genesis of the, the Hebrew Bible and the knowledge of good and evil and stuff like that, it is kind of analogous to that. You come here as a complete innocent. Please don't hate yourself, because there's tons of sin and guilt projections from all that religious stuff that's, it's not good for your hardware. So don't internalize this as being a personal flaw. You are alive, whatever decade you're in. If you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, I don't know if we have anybody in their 70s or 80s watching, but if we do, I'm happy you're here. And I know we do have some tiny infants. Actually, we have some wonderful families. That's why I try to keep my show family friendly and keep my language good. We have some little infants who are maybe 1 year old that watch this show. They need to teach us. We need to listen to them. They're like, look, guys, like, you're not going to die. You come from an eternal place. Instead of us imprinting upon them, you know that you're going to die and death is inevitable. But whatever decade you're in, you have somehow managed to navigate this map of time effectively enough to avoid the membrane of death on this timeline up into your present age. So whatever, if you're like 47, like, good job. You managed to make it 47 years because you went through all of the iterations and did all of the math homework that was wrong. And your math teacher was telling you, like, look, here's your mistake. don't eat that sandwich, you're gonna die. And then next time around, you have the soul knowledge, and someone offers you like a questionable egg salad sandwich, and you're like, I don't think I'll have that. No, no, thank you. I will not eat the death sandwich. And then you stay alive. So every time you make better choices. But your version of the death sandwich, it might be like avoiding a particular drug. Either a illegal drug or a pharmaceutical. That stuff has side effects that might have killed you, or even a choice to go someplace, like if you're going to drive on the highway on a particular day or take a plane ride on a particular day. Like if you don't listen to your soul intuition that tells you when to do these things, then you might be in a plane crash or you might be in a car crash. These are soul consciousness residues from peripheral versions of self that were not successful versions of self, and they continually talk to you. They will give you good information. You don't have to know every single thing about their lives, but just know it's a version of you that loves you and is constantly trying to tell you, don't be like me, make better choices. So sometimes when I teach this, sometimes people give very, very heartfelt sharings. Like one friend from when I lived in Woodstock told me about her days when she was a hitchhiker, because Woodstock is kind of a hippie place. People used to hitchhike a lot in the 70s, and she told me about a harrowing tale where like she could sense if she was going to get in that guy's car, she saw herself dead in a dumpster. And of course, she didn't get in the car. This is the big part. Always trust your soul intuition. Always trust that part of yourself that is telling you, don't get in that car, don't eat that sandwich, don't take that prescription, don't whatever, experiment with that white powdery substance, don't do that thing. It's not going to end well. And that literally becoming an ascended master is learning to navigate through this extraordinary obstacle course of events and possibilities and probabilities without making any wrong notes and avoiding death. And it is possible to do so. And in so doing, you're not just merely avoiding landmines and avoiding bad sandwiches. What you are also doing is honing and sculpting yourself into the greatest shape in terms of polygonal structure of who you're supposed to be. You become the greatest picture of you. Everything, you're not just avoiding death, but everything that you do, like the lives that you touch upon and what you give to the world, and the actions that you do and the ripples that you send out are all things that are life-affirming and that they add to your character, the exaltedness of your character. You become the greatest version of what you can be. So to reiterate, life is not merely, and becoming an ascended master and being a perpetual motion machine is not merely about avoiding death and avoiding accidents and misadventures. It is also going through the proper experiences of life that sculpt you into this greatest version of self, that is what it is to be an ascended master, that is what it is to remember that you're God. And that's the journey. That's what you're supposed to be doing. It's not the end of our class at all, but that's just a really good stopping point. You get back here and you remember that you're God. But that's not the end of your journey, because then there's always like, now it's time to do the next thing. So you're constantly flowing. So wait, that's because there's a couple of new messages. Adam is hopping off. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. And Mary, thank you for being here. Says thank you so much. Few words about turquoise length. You would like to know a little bit more about the turquoise wavelength here? You got it. I glossed over it a little bit. This is just first day of class, but I will go over these colors and their significance many, many times. This chakra, your throat chakra, can really be comprehended as the embodiment of truth, okay? So when I talk about like the lesson about sexuality, the way that you're supposed to do sexuality is to align all of your chakras with your partner. And that includes the chakra of truth. That if you're truthful in relationships, it means that you speak authentically. That is a huge hurdle to jump over. I think you guys, because I mean, now I'm acculturated and I know what your world is like. I come from a place where there's only truth and you can't have lies. That's literally my origins and where I come from and what my heritage is. I did not know what lies were, and I had to learn what lies were when I came here. But then I learned a lot of people lie in relationships. Like they lie about whether they really love each other, and they lie about whether they have had orgasms, and they lie about whether they want to get married, and they lie in their jobs, and they lie in their businesses, and they lie all the time. They lie everything. That is normal here, but that is not normal from where I come from, because also when someone lies where I come from, it's like so obvious. It would be like if I said to you guys, like, yeah, like my face is a purple cupcake. You'd be like, oh, your face is not a purple cupcake. I can see it right there. Like, it's not there. So that's why it's just considered ridiculous, like to be able to assert something that is not truthful. It's just completely ridiculous and maybe even a little bit insane. But here in the land of the blind, you can lie, and people sometimes will believe you. And social lies that help people to feel better and all these different things. In fact, I mean, just as a walk-in, when I first came here, and I learned a lot about your culture from pop culture, from like TV shows, and I watched that show Seinfeld. And it was not a funny show to me. It actually was a cringy show to me, because every single episode I watched, I was like, well, like, this could all be solved with just simple communication. Like, you don't have to lie. Like somebody, you don't have to like pretend. You don't have to do all these different subterfuges. You can just tell the truth. Like, did you take the marble rye? I took the marble rye. And then she's like, I love you. But he can't say I love you back. So he says, I love you in that sweater. And then it's a whole thing in their relationship. You should be like, I don't feel the same way about you that you feel about me. So this has to do with the throat and truth and information. That the throat is not a place where we put arbitrary information into the world. It is actually an organ of truthfulness and honesty. And in the distorted world that you find yourself in, you might think like, like we need this dishonesty. I can't deal with all this honesty. Like, our world would fall apart if we didn't have some pleasantries and lies. But really, in order to be a truly galactic citizen and enter the world of pure telepathy, you have to go into states of radical authenticity. And that also means, wait, we're going to hug cheeky while we close out class here. And that also means that you have to be prepared to give, send and receive accurate and truthful information. And that is what the throat chakra does. It requires an enormous amount of growth, personal growth, and personal responsibility. Because when you're in the highest dimensional aspect of your being, you take responsibility for the things that you say and the impact that your thoughts even have upon someone else. So the honesty and authenticity goes into even beyond what you verbalize, but what you think with your mind. And what if you're not even like saying it with your mouth, but if you just look at someone, you think like wow, like what an ugly outfit, or what a huge ass. And that person looks at you and is like, did you just think that at me? You have to be like, yeah, sorry, I did. I did. And those are comical examples that would actually not cause a lot of friction. But what if you're in a telepathic society and you're connected to someone else's mind just because you're alive and they're alive? And what if you really have problems with them? What if you really think, yes, so-and-so is such a butthead? And they hear you, and they're like, did you say that to me about, do you think that thought to me about me? Like, I did, I thought that, and I feel it, and it's true, and I think that you're a butthead. And that is a different level of reality. So, because what's happening is you're really part of like a continuum of consciousness. There's no distinction between yourself and the other beings that you're connected to. And you have these levels of honesty and authenticity, and then you have to work it out. And that's a lot of what our lives in ancient concurrent Atlantis were really centered upon. Like, we didn't have giant wars or physical violences, and we weren't trying to decapitate each other with machetes or anything like that. But you might think that about someone else. And you're in a telepathic society. If you're thinking like so-and-so is such a butthead, and they hear you, and then they're like, hey, well, let's have it out. Let's talk about this. Roll it up my sleeve. Let's talk about this. You had personality conflicts, and that's part of the purpose of individuating, becoming an individual, not just being part of a giant continuum of consciousness, not just being part of God, and then taking responsibility for who you are and what you do. And you take responsibility for the truthfulness that you share through your communication, if it is verbalized or non-verbalized, but also the other person must receive, and they must receive in levels of responsibility, because it's not just about fighting because someone insulted you. It might be like, am I really a butthead? Maybe I have to consider this about myself if someone is thinking that about me. Totally maybe incomprehensible in this present level of culture, which I joke, I call it the barbarian culture. Because around here, like this, no one gives an F. And everyone is just mean, and they take very little responsibility, and there's very little personal growth. But I come from two places that are all about huge levels of personal responsibility and personal growth that happens as a result. One is ancient concurrent Atlantis, and the other is this highest dimensional place that is outside of space-time where lies don't exist. So you own it. You own your truth. And if you think something that is unkind about another person, then they will know it. But you might be very justified. It might be very valid. You know, you might really have a very real reason for thinking what you think, and then there might be some growing that happens if the other person, instead of becoming bombastic and saying, you're not allowed to think that about me, you're very, very mean, be like, why do you think that? What is this about? And then you can articulate it, and you can say, because, you know, like you mowed over my flowers that I was trying to grow, or you, whatever, treated me bad in whatever way. Like, there's a reason for all of this. It's not just random, arbitrary violence or mind aggression. In the two places that I come from, that are the way that the world is absolutely supposed to be shaped. So I'm currently always bringing you information about the way that the world is supposed to be shaped, but please recognize you live right now in dysfunctional dystopia, not a paradise, and there are other dysfunctional non-paradise states where there's other realms, other levels of reality, other planets, other dimensions where people are similarly screwed up. And I'm actually here like on a big mission to be able to rectify a lot of this. So Charlie B says, seems like the world of lies in our current culture really just attempts to result in a lot of issue avoidance and responsibility avoidance. Totally. Exactly. Yes. In fact, we would say lies, some lies are self-serving and they help you to exploit others, but a lot of lies relate to the mammalian need for community. We're like, okay, I can't tell I can't tell this guy over here the truth about my feelings because I actually need something from this guy. That is literally the world of business and, you know, personal interaction in the world that we're coming out of. Where it's like, you know something, I cannot be that authentic because that guy's my boss and I need money from him, or that guy's my client and I'm trying to sell something to him, or that is my teacher and I want my teacher to give me a good grade, or mommy and daddy, I want approval from them and I want them not to commit infanticide against me. There are a lot of reasons why people learn how to lie. Little children learn how to lie. You know, like, do you color in red crayon all over my white couch? And the little kids will say, no, I didn't do it. And you say, who did it? They'll be like, Batman did it. And you're like, Batman didn't do that. You did. But they learn how to lie really early because they want parental approval. And then people learn how to lie in order to have friendships at school. And then people learn how to lie in order to get the attraction of the opposite sex or the same sex. And then people learn how to lie in order to achieve their career states. And then even having careers, people lie with all sorts of things. People lie in their resumes. People lie with their appearances. People lie in their capability levels. All of that, this inauthenticity in almost every level of your human culture that you're coming out of, which again, when I first came here as a cultural outsider, I was like, well, this is all just so foolish. Like, you can just get right past that with just pure honesty, and not recognizing that that was like the most corrosive thing. Like, no, not honesty. Like, we can't take honesty. But that's me. I'm totally like, I don't lie about stuff. And I remember the first time somebody lied to me here, actually, and how devastated I was when I experienced that first lie. And it relates to the same feelings that you guys probably felt maybe when you were 3 or 4 years old, again, about the time that you learn about death, when you're like, that grown-up said we would get ice cream and then they didn't give us ice cream. They lied. And that is soul-crushing. And I remember when I was here and I found out that somebody lied, and I was like, oh, their words did not match their intentions at all. They lied. And as soon as you learn that, you're like, oh, well, that's a thing here. And then that guy can lie, and then that guy can lie. And all of a sudden you have to build this whole shield of defenses where someone says something and you have to say, is that true? Is that what they really mean? Who can I trust? And it becomes a distance, that you're no longer connected to people, you become distance from people. And everything that I'm teaching you here in this class is preparation really for reintegration into a telepathic society where there is not that level of distance, and part of what it requires is complete and total levels of honesty. But that is, again, like the most threatening or corrosive thing that most people can feel like around here. They're like, whatever you do, just like, don't make me be honest. in my life or in relationships, because that, that would really be painful or inconvenient. But where I come from, and this is like good to end on, and then I'll take Cheeky outside, you have different levels of mind sharing. So it's not like you have full access to everything that's in my mind. I use my house as an example, that where I live, there's like the sidewalk that is outside on the public street. Sorry, I need to drink, and clearly you can tell my voice is tired. So if I'm on the sidewalk, there's the presumption that I'm in a public space and that I'm available for talking or chatting. And then I should be dressed for the public. I should not be walking on the sidewalk like wearing like my pajamas or something that is like, whatever, like, my underwear. Then there is my courtyard. And my courtyard is actually not for the public. It's just for the people that live in this building. But still, it's public space, and if I'm out there, I should be socially presentable. Can't go out there naked, definitely not. So I only show a certain amount of myself to people, even in the courtyard, but it's not for the entire public. Then you have my actual house. In order to come into my actual house, you need to have an invitation. Knock, 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 can I come in? That's what it is with your mind. In a telepathic society, someone has to say, knock, 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 can I come in? None of this mind rape stuff. You've got enough of that around here. Know that it is wrong and completely aberrant. That's not how real interactions and real relationships happen. So real relationships happen when someone says, I would like to connect to your mind, and they also must give you their unique signature. It's like their caller ID and the feeling of real love. And if they do that, then you can be like, okay, fine, you can come on in. But if they don't have those things, then you should say, take a long walk off a short pier or whatever. Get out of here. I don't want you to come inside of me. And even if somebody comes to my front door and I'm like, oh, you're my friend, thank you for knocking, and you're being polite, you can come in through my front door. You can eject someone at any time. Doesn't mean that they have an open invitation to stay for forever. And then here, you can barely see it because the lighting is just so bad, but like here we're in my studio, which is my living room. Public space in my house. When you come in here, this is like, you're allowed to be in my living room and you're allowed to see all the stuff that's here. But then through my doorway over there, there's my bedroom. Not everyone is allowed to go into my bedroom because there's private stuff in there. And I don't want everyone to see all my private stuff. And then even one door further, there's even the most private stuff, which is the bathroom, where a lot of private things happen in there. So in mind culture, just because you come inside of someone's mind doesn't mean that you have access to every single memory and every single feeling. You got it? In terms of levels of honesty, a person can still have their private journal, their private feelings, their private traumas, things that happen to them, that you don't just necessarily have that like on the living room table. You just don't have your greatest trauma, like, a coffee table book right in your living room. No, that's like on the bookshelf in the bedroom, and you only share that with trusted people, right? And then your bathroom, that's when you do your most private stuff in biological world. And in your mind, you have your most private place where you have to process things, because you know what? Some people are buttheads, and you have to be able to think that thought in your mind. You go into your private bathroom in your mind, because bathroom is where you process emotional stuff. You have to be able to process emotional stuff even in a telepathically connected society and feel your feelings. Be like, oh yeah, when so-and-so did and said this and it made me mad, and then I felt this way about them, and then I felt this way about them. But that's fine. That's all my personal feelings, and they can feel their personal feelings about me. That is appropriate. So that is part of how the telepathic society is structured, where you have authenticity, but I'm not necessarily hearing everyone in the whole entire world in their mind, thinking about Aurora and whether or not they think I'm bad or good, or whether I'm a butthead, or whether I upset them or whatever, because that could be a lot, because they might be having a bad day and it might have nothing to do with me, all right? So you have time to process your own privacy, but then also your minds will connect at a certain point and everything becomes evident, and then you're gonna learn and feel and hear stuff, and that's part of taking responsibility, because at a certain point you're like, well, maybe this is not random, and maybe I really did do something that hurt these people, and then I have to reassess myself and my behavior. Marie, and thank you for being here. Marie, long-term returning student, says, some people talk about their spirit guides. What is that? Okay, great question. So in the previous levels of reality, when humans were just red, orange, yellow, Roy, a physical container, emotions, and some daily waking intellect, there was like the ceiling was here in love, And everything that was your higher senses up above pure unconditional love was considered to be like another person, like an angelic another person, but it's really you, but just wearing a very different, disguise or a very different persona. But there's not a distinction. But for a lot of people, they've been really indoctrinated into the self of the idea of your lower self, your ego self, in contrast with your higher self, your angelic self. And full spectrum means like you're the entirety, you're the whole thing. So for many people, in order to achieve insight, what they would do is they would say, okay, ego self, like you shut up. Now I'm going to listen to my spirit guides. And your spirit guides are likely your higher or highest self perspective that is actually a form of you, but just in a very different mind state and moving at a very different rate, and not the mundane biological viewpoint, but still you. But many people can't encompass that as their self-identity, and so they say it is my guides or it is something other. But really, when you start to get into profound levels of truth in your journey, you start to be like, oh, that's actually me. I'm actually guiding me from above or from up there or from out there, and it's truthful. And Pedro says, if you come to Mexico, don't get angry. If you ask when and we answer ahorita, it's like coming, quote unquote, but it can take from 1 minute to 1 hour. Sometimes people are, that's so funny. Well, very, very good preparation there. I would love to visit you in Mexico sometime, and I won't get mad if we ask, like, whatever, when are you going to get there? And if you say ahorita, it could be 1 minute to 1 hour. I love it. Thank you for informing us on that. So if there's any more questions or comments or things that I can speak to, now's a good time. And also, please remember, this is just the first day of school. We've got so many good things to talk about. So also, I sent this out in the email, but for anyone who might not know how things go, this presentation relates to level 1, lesson 1 in the whiteboards. So if you haven't accessed that already, go into that, because even though I send around my notes, and I try to say everything that I can, even during 3 hours, there's always things that I miss, and there's gems, there's hidden gems that you take the time to listen. It's only like 29 minutes or at most an hour, and take the time to listen to the original recordings, because I think that you will really get something out of it. Allison says, thank you, Aurora, so much good stuff. You're so very welcome. Thank you for being a long-term returning student. So time for me to wrap it up. My profound thanks and gratitude to returning students who are here sharing their insights and their ideas, and to totally new people who are just exposing their minds to these new ideas. And thank you for understanding that Chiki, she's sleeping right down here, is the love of my life, and she needs to have a little, we sometimes say W-A-L-K, because that is an activation word. So thank you everyone for loving Chiki, because now we're going to say it. Chiki's going to go for a walk, and she's going to get her walkies, and she's going to be so happy and excited. So thank you very much, everyone. Yeah, she's definitely a master teacher. And Christine says, thank you. Pedro says, love the lasagna. Ahorita. We'll be there soon. I love it. Thank you for teaching me. And Joyce says, thank you. Thank you. Much love. Love and appreciation to all of you. Thank you so much. Thank you for being in my class. And looking forward greatly to sharing with you this semester. Thank you, everyone.